So Gretchen, there may be a few more folks that want to give public comment that I haven't had a chance to check in with.
Okay, copy that. Did you hear that, Kelsey, too? Okay, great. So we'll be aware of that and check in.
Gretchen, there may be a few.
Very good. Okay, Kelsey, it's all you.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the May 1st. It's May. Human Rights Commission meeting. Really appreciate everyone being here today. My name is Kelsey Murray. For pronouns, the vice chair of the commission. The first note that I have here is if we have more than just a couple of guests, we'll skip introductions, and we do. So we're going to go ahead and skip introductions and get going with our business. So we have a list of folks who are interested in making public comment. We have a quorum of commissioners. So first we're going to vote on, or discuss rather, of how we want to go about public comments tonight. Commissioners, you should have gotten in an email kind of some of our options, such as hearing all public comment, limiting public comment by minutes or people, or you'll have heard or spoken before. So I'm wondering if any commissioners have a motion or have a discussion item for that topic.
And to build on that, Kelsey, apologies. I think it might help to know how many people are interested, and then of those, how many people might be new voices that you haven't heard from yet.
Yes. So right now we have 14 people who are interested in giving public comment. 11 of those have not, 11 of those have not given public comment before.
Copy that. And then Laura, would you
Just
mind
kidding, we have
updating
a ton more back there.
on the Zoom?
So I have one person interested in giving public comment that has not before, as well as an additional written comment.
And then I see,
And then it looks like Xander Taylor Lane. Are you raising your hand because you're interested? Yeah. And
Yes.
Taylor has submitted before, as well as Xander has submitted written comment.
copy that. So I think if I'm tracking, we have 16 people interested in providing comment, of which 12 would be new voices.
And then we have 4 back
Oh,
there.
plus 4. Great. All new? Do we happen to know?
You have 5 new and 2 repeat. There's 2 previous.
So maybe 17 new? 25.
Okay,
Okay.
getting like 19.
So my understanding is that we do have quorum.
Yes. Yes.
Could we ask those of us in attendance whether the appetite is to stay later?
Yes.
Because I know that was posed in advance, but of those present today, who is able to stay later than 8 o'clock?
I was thinking about making a motion, but I'll stop at this point. I would like to see the folks that have not spoken before. Discussion limited to 3 minutes, and yes, I can stay.
Thank you for that, Lisa. So that was not a motion, but you would like to hear from folks who haven't given public comment and limit it to 3 minutes a person?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
I agree with you on all counts.
Okay.
I do have a conflict, so I'll delete it.
Okay.
But when that drops below the quorum.
At this time, yes.
I know I've made, I would prefer to not stay later, I think, but I'm at your whim.
So 3 minutes would put us at how many, how long, how much of this meeting?
Anybody have a calculator quick?
That'd be 75 minutes, so there's approximately 25 people wanting to comment, 3 minutes apiece, 75 minutes.
Another option would be to drop to 2 minutes. That's another choice that folks have had before too. And everyone, we appreciate your patience while we have this conversation. It's an unusual experience for the commission and just taking a moment to make sure that they have a sense of how they want to do. It's important not to make deliberations outside of a public meeting process. So this isn't something they could have decided outside of a public meeting. So I appreciate your patience.
Gretchen, did you say that you have 17 people who have not been heard of or heard from?
I had said that give or take. Yeah, I'm a little unconfident in the number, but yes.
That would set you at about 51 minutes, and then if you wanted to hear from the additional people who have spoken and limit that to 2, then that would probably get you inside your window.
Thank you. Would you like to proceed as that description?
Yeah, is there a motion?
I make a motion that we allot 3 minutes of public comment for those individuals who have not commented before the Human Rights Commission prior, and then reduce the allotted time to 2 minutes for those that have provided public comment before.
I second that emotion.
All right, there has been a motion and a seconded. All those in favor, or are there any
Oh,
questions?
yeah, any questions,
About the
discussion,
the
comments?
motion? Any?
My only thing is, I would love, we really need to have conversation among the commission. So, you know. Let's be respectful of that too. So I would say we need to at least start talking in second.
Okay, so do you want to move to amend the proposal?
Well, it doesn't sound like we need to, but I really want,
Okay,
I guess this is something I'm asking the audience to respect. So that we can get into the conversation I think we're all here to have. So I guess no amendment necessary.
all right, any other questions or discussion items on the motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, thumbs up, say aye, give a
I,
all those opposed, nay or thumbs down. All right,
Can I make a request? I don't know, I think I hear Lisa, I don't know who's online. Can you?
Oh,
as far as
oh.
commissioner?
Commission members online are Lisa, Laura, and Kate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
all right. Okay, that has been approved. All right, so moving forward, we're allotting 3 minutes to those who have not given public comment at the Human Rights Commission on this topic, and then 2 minutes to those who have. So let's see. As Joaquin said, commissioners, we do need an opportunity to kind of talk about this so that we leave tonight with something. So if we could just keep those comments to those that allotted time, that would be great. And if you were joining us here for the first time, the third time, or the millionth time, just remember that keep this room respectful. We know that there are a lot of completely valid feelings and emotions at this moment. So just respect kind of where everyone is coming from. And while someone's giving their public comment, please keep your comments to yourself, I guess. If you feel comfortable, we would love for those giving public comment to take a seat at the table and address the commissioners. Any questions before we kind of move on? Okay, great. So we'll go ahead and move into public comment. So I'm going to start from the top of the list and then move down. There's a question.
Are we going to live stream this?
Oh, yes, sorry.
We
We're-
are.
we are.
For those of you who've come in late, we're live streaming to YouTube right now. You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Okay, great. The first public comment that we have is Joel Rosenblatt.
Yes.
Great. And then do you want?
I'll do it.
So Gretchen's gonna keep time and we'll give you a 1-minute warning. And then we're good to go. All right, whenever you're ready.
I speak as someone who supported a two-state solution since the 1970s. That state dates me. And worked for an Israeli and Palestinian state side by side existing in peace in groups such as New Jewish Agenda and J Street. I support a ceasefire. Your proclamation, however, is deeply flawed. Hamas is not mentioned until the end. There's no emphasis on the atrocities committed by Hamas on October 7th that started the war. It doesn't mention the killings of young and old and everyone in between, indiscriminate killings, sexual abuse of the victims, mutilations, taking hostages, etc. Hamas wants to kill all Jews and indeed all Israelis, Jew and non-Jew. For there were Bedouins killed on October 7th. There were Israeli Arabs killed on October 7th. And there were over 300 young people at a music festival who were slaughtered on October 7th. So what you're doing really, I'll use your words, this is an attempt to erase the Jewish people from their ancestral homeland. That's what Hamas is trying to do. Not you, but Hamas. Hamas has no remorse for October 7th and said they will repeat it. Hamas wants to establish a theocratic regime that will discriminate against women as they're discriminated against in Iran. The actions of Israel and Gaza rooting out Hamas has been excessive and cruel to the civilian population in which Hamas has embedded itself. This is not genocide. Israel is not trying to kill all Palestinians. I object to your use of the term genocide in the proclamation. Israel's not trying to kill all Palestinians. They're only trying to kill Hamas militants, but in the process, they've killed way too many civilians. Since October 7th and the rise of, there's been a rise of anti-Semitic incidents. Of course, Jews in Israel have suffered from that, and we have in the diaspora in the US. And Jews are feeling unsafe. I think the proclamation reduces a very complex situation to simple statements, categorical statements. And it's a one-sided proclamation, and this increases the anxiety of Jews in Salem for our safety because of the rise of anti-Semitic incidents throughout the country.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Peggy McGuire.
Good evening, Commissioners. Peggy McGuire. My husband and I are longtime Salem residents. We live in Ward 4. I'm the daughter of a Christian Arab and a Jewish American mom. So issues in the Middle East are near and dear to my heart and passionate in our family on many levels. I'm a member of the Salem Jewish community. And I wanted to thank you for extending the comment period to allow those of us celebrating Passover to be able to provide comments and input to you. That's much appreciated. As the saying goes, nothing about us without us. Israel is about the size of Malheur County. 21% of the population of Israel are Arabs. That includes Palestinians. And they serve as elected officials, members of the legal system, members of law enforcement, members of the military. Gaza, which has a population of approximately 2 million people, is presently under the rule of Hamas, which is a group that killed the elected leaders of the Gaza administration in 2007 and took control of the region. They routinely violate the human rights of all Palestinian people, and in particular, those of the Christian Arabs. Hamas is the Arabic acronym of the Islamic Resistance Movement. Its call to action is for members of all religions to stop disrupting the sovereignty of Islam in the region. And they state that they will never recognize the legitimacy of Israel. They initiated the attack on Israel and continuously refused to participate in a ceasefire when they've been asked to hand over innocent hostages they took on October 7th. Hamas has fired tens of thousands of illegal rockets into civilian areas and continues to do so. Hamas militants have killed and maimed thousands of innocent citizens. And both Israeli and Palestinian, and it's been well established that Hamas fights from within densely populated
1
areas
minute.
as an intentional strategy. Their leadership proudly speaks about sacrificing Gazans to achieve their national goals, which are in themselves a violation of human rights. I'm not confident that a conflict which has been waging for longer than many of us in this room have been alive can be influenced by in any helpful way by an ill-informed resolution from the Salem City Council. We have our own humanitarian crisis, a growing tsunami of homelessness here in Salem.
30 seconds.
And we can't even figure out how to work through the complexities of that issue together. A poorly informed resolution will only inflame anti-Semitic targeting of our community.
I guess commissioners, we're gonna move through the list, are we moving through the notes first? Are we moving through the notes?
People you haven't heard from, yeah.
Okay. Up next, we have Maxine.
Good evening. I'm Maxine. I live in Ward 1. And I want to offer a clarifying point on a subject that this commission has broached both tonight and previously, namely respectful dialogue. More specifically, I wish to emphasize that under no conceivable definition of the phrase can the denial or defense of a genocide be considered a respectful exchange. For anyone to suggest that the state of Israel is not committing genocide, or to say that it is justified in any way in its crimes against humanity, is an inexcusable act of disrespect to the men, women, and children in Gaza who, by the thousands, have been and continue to be subjected to massacre, starvation, and torture. More than being profoundly disrespectful, this is also a truly vile act of casual cruelty. To say that the people of Gaza's murderers are not committing murder, or to say that these remorseless killers are absolved of guilt in any way by spurious claims of human shields, is not within the bounds of respectful dialogue, nor is it within the bounds of reality. The person responsible for a murder is the person who does the killing. Blame cannot be shifted to anyone else. To point to other crimes against humanity and say, but what about that, does not raise serious concerns about the scope or content of the statement this committee is drafting. Rather, it is a poorly veiled attempt to wrench focus away from the horrors that unfold hourly within Gaza. To reemphasize a point already made by others, we are not here simply to abstractly say that bad things are bad. The matter at hand is a specific, ongoing genocide being funded by our tax dollars. I urge this body, if you are truly dedicated to human rights, as your title says, then cut off anyone tonight and in future who attempts to say such things, just as you would anyone who took the floor just to scream obscenities. Indeed, you should respond to it more vigorously, for there isn't a vulgarity in existence that carried anywhere near the deplorable bile that genocide does. Thus far, I am sad to say, you have failed in this. You have already failed in this tonight, and have allowed such naked interference to be run without restraint in past meetings. You have even admonished those who have responded to such words with the outrage they would naturally provoke in any decent person. You must do better than this if you want to be worthy of representing Salem in matters of human rights. If you allow those sorts of vile statements to be freely uttered in this or any other meeting, then you are not defending a respectful exchange of views. You instead would be acting as accomplices to the disruption they are designed to generate. Such words do not contribute to a healthy dialogue. They make it impossible. As a summation of my point, I'll say this. There's a difference between neutrality and fairness, and there is certainly a difference between neutrality and justice. Thank you.
Time. And Maxine and everyone, just a quick staff comment. We're not permitted to interrupt or to exclude or to stop the content of a person's speech. And so that isn't something that we're permitted as a public entity to do. So I just wanted to clarify that. We can't have discussion about that. I'd be happy to talk with you after the meeting, but just a point of clarification for the options for the commission.
All right, I don't feel that changes anything I said, but.
Forgive me. Okay, forgive me if I misunderstood or misconstrued, but just a clarification for the commission. Thank you.
Right, next we have Max Moran. Whenever you are ready.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Max Moran. I'm a resident of Ward 1 and a proud Jew. I rise today to strongly endorse the resolution for Salem to denounce Israel's genocide of Gaza. Like many of my fellow Jews, I was taught from an early age that our people have suffered extraordinary hatred for centuries. 6 million Jews were murdered in the Holocaust. The only reason I am alive is that my great-grandfather emigrated from Poland just a few years before the Nazis came to power. Every single one of his brothers, sisters, cousins, friends, and loved ones were killed in the camps. I say this to make it clear that I do not say the following lightly. What Israel is perpetrating in Gaza right now is a genocide. This is profoundly painful and psychologically jarring for me to say as a Jew. It is also the truth. The word genocide has a very specific definition. It is the crime of acting to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, religious, or racial group with the specific intent of destruction. Over the past 8 months, Israel has razed Gaza to the ground. IDF soldiers have killed over 34,000 people, including over 13,800 children, in a region where half of the population is under the age of 18. 83% of Gaza's hospitals have been bombed, many repeatedly. Half of the Gazan population is experiencing catastrophic food insecurity, yet Israel has restricted humanitarian food delivery in Gaza for months, itself a war crime. Israel now plans to invade Rafah, one of the last untouched cities where millions of displaced people are encamped. To understand the Israeli government's motivations, consider Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich. On Monday, he called for, quote, total annihilation of Rafah, and then quoted the Torah, quote, you will blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. In Exodus, the Amalekites are a tribe which the biblical Israelites eradicate while they are roaming in the desert, and what modern scholars call a commandment to commit genocide. The terrorist acts on October 7th were evil, but this is not a measured, reasonable response. This is a massacre, it is a genocide. I know that, like myself, many of my fellow Jews are still suffering after 10/7, and some of us cannot imagine that we, as a people who have suffered so much, could possibly inflict such suffering on others. That is a natural human failing. Accepting what Israel has done in our names as Jews forever changes how one understands what it means to be Jewish in the present moment. Particularly as American Jews, it requires us to reckon with profoundly bleak truths and ask some very confusing questions. I understand why someone might instead choose denial. Many people have in similar circumstances before. But to wrap ourselves in denial is an act of unforgivable weakness. It is a betrayal of our obligations to hold ourselves to the standard God expects of us and to repair the world. The cost of our denial as Jews and as Americans is the lives of thousands of Gazan children. Going through a personal identity crisis is hard. The murder of children is harder. The organized murder of tens of thousands is unforgivable. If we cannot condemn evil because our complicity in it discomforts us, then as Jews, we do not deserve to call ourselves a people committed to Tikkun Olam. I urge you to vote yes on this resolution. Thank you very much.
Time.
Next we have, Rabbi Pearlstein.
Thanks. I'm saddened by the content of this whole dialogue, that the city has even gotten to this point. With the best of intentions, the Human Rights Council has given hate and bigotry a platform. With the action plan that you're planning on taking, you're only going to propagate lies, anti-Semitic tropes, and rally cries for a terrorist group, Hamas. You endanger the Jewish community by your actions, and you haven't taken a minute to consider how all of these continues to harm citizens in Salem. Why or what's going on here is anti-Semitic. Many argue that they're simply responding to social justice issue of our time. They say that they're not against Jews and that they claim only to oppose the policies of the state of Israel in the current war against Hamas. Although not even wanting to mention or condemn Hamas, while there's 133 hostages being held by these terrorists, some of whom are Americans. Criticism of the government of Israel isn't inherently anti-Semitic. Many people have genuine concerns for human rights. But many in this camp get swept up by the narrative and fail to realize that the whole campaign against Zionism and the sole Jewish state is a front for the new anti-Semitism, an unholy alliance with radical Islamic terrorists whose stated goal is to kill as many Jews as they can. Anti-Semitism is a virus that survives by mutating. In the Middle Ages, Jews were hated because they were religious. 19th and 20th century, they were hated because they were a race. Today, we're hated because of our nation state, Israel. Anti-Semitism is a form of cognitive failure, and it reduces complex problems to simplicities. It divides the world into black and white, seeing all the faults on one side and all the victimhood on the other. It singles out the Jews from among 100 offenders for the blame. It silences dissent and never engages in self-criticism. The argument is always the same. We are innocent, they are guilty. It follows that if we want to be free, they, the Jews or the state of Israel, must not be supported. And that is how great crimes begin. The hyper-focus on the conflict between Israel and Hamas, while remaining silent on the 5.5 million killed in the Congo, the 3 million rounded up and placed in horrific conditions deported from Pakistan to Afghanistan, 500,000 killed in Syria, 500,000 killed in Sudan, 400,000 killed in Yemen, 300,000 killed in Iraq, 250,000 killed in Afghanistan, is a clear display of how criticism of Israel has turned anti-Semitic, how the fight for the so-called justice has become a front for Jew hatred and calls for our destruction. At this point, any statement singling out the Jewish state is a textbook definition of anti-Semitism. We concluded Passover last night in the Haggadah that we read at the Seder, we say, not only did the Egyptians try to destroy us, but in every generation they rise to destroy us, but God saves us from their evil plans. Our Torah is our deed to our ancestral homeland. It's our indigenous claim to the biblical homeland of Israel. It's over 5,500 years old. I hope and pray that this commission finds its way in fostering peace rather than sowing hatred and division.
Thank you. Up next, we have Jessica Rayfield. Rayfield. Thank you.
My name is Jessica Rayfield. I'm a Jewish resident of Salem. I've read your statements and minutes and cover letter, and what I've witnessed of this and your process is shocking for its lack of inclusion and use of language that is based in inaccuracies. It's factually inaccurate to use the term genocide in any statement about Israel or Gaza unless describing the plan for the intentional genocide of Jews by the Islamic regime and its paramilitary arm that conducted mass murder in Israel, Hamas. If you use the term genocide or genocidal to describe Israel, it is a rhetorical action which paints a clear description of who you as a commission and a body are. I can hardly believe you would issue a public statement that will certainly harm Jews and Jewish people in our community as a performative action that belies your commitment to misinformation as a basis of your public statement. This only makes clear the adherence to lack of credible information that you have based your statements on, and that is embarrassing for a public council. If you or representatives of the city of Salem make a statement using factually incorrect information that represents a clear bias and a turn towards favoring misinformation that we have all witnessed over the past several years, I respectfully question your ability to work from facts and also your intent. Misinformation is the basis of the narrative of your statement. If you're allowed to make this statement based on inaccuracies, what means you won't be allowed to do so about other issues? Even more worrisome than facts is your statements show a clear bias and a blatant lack of Jewish inclusion. Let me ask, how many of you knew that today is the first day of Jewish American Heritage Month, May? Did you also know you held this discourse over the course of Passover and had barely any inclusion of Jews in comments and sessions that will directly affect Jews in your community? Did you know anything about these topics prior to October 7th? Your statement and accompanying letter weekly defines ceasefire as all parties and only condemn Israel rather than demanding a release of hostages, and never point to Hamas as the instigator of this war. Where's the mention of intentional murder of 1,200 people and violations of international law by Hamas, where you only condemn Israel? Why does it name East Jerusalem, where the Temple Mount important to Jews and Muslims stands, as a new capital for a new state of Palestine? Where are your Jewish Salem residents? Have you approached us about our family's losses of life and attacks on our community members? Who will speak for us? One last point, there's no consideration of how Jews and the United States feel. And let me give you a hint, it's fear. Your Jewish constituents live in fear. Did you know that we live in fear? There must be no statement on ceasefire unless it includes statements from Jews. If you make this statement, we will know that we can't trust you in Salem.
Up next, we have Julia. Whenever you are ready.
Hi, I'm a resident of Salem and I live in Ward 1. I want to acknowledge that today is also the beginning of the month of missing and murdered Indigenous people awareness. Indigenous people throughout the world face undue violence and oppression. I'm about to graduate from law school and I have spent the last several months intensively researching the history of colonization, war crimes, immigration, geopolitics, as well as environmental degradation in the region between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. For those who have not engaged in understanding the deep and long-standing history of the region, I implore you to look into it more deeply and specifically look beyond the propagandist coverage that many of us in the US often see. The word Palestine to describe this region was first recorded thousands of years ago in 3200 BCE, which is prior to any recorded record of the term Israel or Israelites. Palestinians have been the indigenous stewards of their land since time immemorial. Unfortunately and heartbreakingly, Palestinians have faced violent colonization for centuries under Britain and other colonizing powers. Many of us have been devastated and bewildered by the violence we have seen perpetrated by Israel in the last few months, rounding up even children, tying their hands behind their backs, killing them, and burying them in mass graves. Research indicates that more than 15 million tons of debris litters Gaza currently. This debris is comprised of toxic dust, including pulverized asbestos and other chemicals. Exposure to such debris is known to cause cancer and other illnesses similar to what we've seen experienced by the individuals involved in cleaning up the 9/11 site. Nearly 40,000 Palestinian civilians have been murdered by Israeli forces in the past few months. Additionally, humanitarian aid workers, such as 7 of the World Central Kitchen staff, have also been killed, and Americans have also been killed. Israel has also used the extremely deadly substance, white phosphorus,
1 minute.
which is regulated under international humanitarian law. And Israel has done this despite the fact that in the past it has promised to stop using such a terrifyingly destructive chemical. Not only is the Israeli military currently genociding the Palestinian people, this current military offensive is contributing to global climate change and long-term environmental destruction that experts believe will take years to remedy. Such gruesome tactics of genocide have been used against the indigenous people of the region for at least a
30
century.
seconds.
And the US federal government has long supported this, including a recent $26 billion aid package primarily going to arm the Israeli military with more munitions. We are watching one of the most horrific genocides that has ever occurred, with hundreds of thousands of Palestinians on the brink of famine, as well as facing spreading viruses and other health concerns. The only humane thing to do right now is to clearly and unequivocally call for a permanent ceasefire and the end to US support of this genocide.
Time. Thank you. Next we have Jacob.
David? Hey, Jacob or
Jacob.
Jacob, right?
Yeah. Whenever you're ready. Mhm.
So sorry for being a little bit nervous. I have autism, so I'm speaking in front of a large audience back here. Is odd. It's currently called autism spectrum disorder, but it used to be called Asperger's. This is because the term came from the Nazi death camps. Originally, when the Nazis were rounding up Jews, Poles, and other disabled people, like with autism and other things, they would call low-functioning individuals autistic, which then would be gassed and their remains incinerated. High-functioning individuals like me would be not in their language, what the current day term translated. Asperger's would be forced into labor camps until we are not useful and we would be disposed. With this history tied to my identity, that of autism, I looked at what's happening now. If anyone were to financially support the Nazi regime, they killed autistic people like me, Jewish people like my friend, and many others would be horrified and cussed them out of here. Currently, Oregon sent upwards of $41 million to the current day equivalent of the Nazi regime, the Zionist regime, both living by a philosophy of stealing land for one's own benefit. Israel justifying genocide of the entire Palestinian people based on actions of Hamas. They're the same as the Nazis justifying the killing of Jews due to anti-Semitic conspiracies of Jews being behind the decline of Germany, and because the Nazis believed they were behind Bolshevism, aka socialism, for those who aren't aware. I'm also a socialist. We should be disgusted that our money is being sent to the current day equivalent of the Nazi regime. And especially, we should not be ignorant of the fact that this regime is not attacking Hamas, for who claims that. They're trying to kill the entire Palestinian people. If they wanted Hamas, they would stop colonizing them, because unlike two countries warring against each other, they're not infamous. When you're colonizing someone's land, every parent you kill, an orphan, 3 or 4 or
1
5
minute.
children, creates many more members who are radicalized into horrible action. Now I say today, October 7th, the killing of civilians was horrible. But that does not justify genociding the entire population, especially the population where most of them aren't even in Hamas. And you cannot hide behind, oh, they were hiding behind, Hamas was hiding behind civilians. That is disgusting. If in Israel there was Hamas in a hospital, they would not bomb their own hospitals.
30 seconds.
Oh, thank you. Just get this a little bit. But
Up next, we have Todd. This on?
it's on.
Is on.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Todd. I live in Ward 1. I, along with Julia, am a law student graduating this May. And to me, I think the fundamental problem that we run into with this system is that we are characterizing this as a war. To me, it is very clear-cut genocide. But let's take for a moment and take it at face value and characterize it as a war. The problem that we run into as well is that war presumes that it's a symmetrical conflict. But we've already seen and we've already heard from my colleagues today and in previous meetings that that's not the truth. The overwhelming majority of casualties in this war are non-combatants, are Palestinian families, women and children. And to me, that is not a war. But I understand that you all as objective decision makers have to consider a variety of perspectives, right? And so I'm going to offer you something to hang your hat on if you are on the fence, right, about this language. And to me, if you look at international law, we've already heard a couple of perspectives about what international law means is that the actions of Israel have been against many international law conventions. The Convention Against Torture, which Israel is a signatory to, the Geneva Conventions. You just have to look on social media to see that, how asymmetrical this conflict is, if you consider it as a war. And so why I'm talking about this today is that I know the position that you're in. Like, I'm a leader too, and I know we have to make objective decisions. But to me, it's very clear cut about what this language means, right? Part of that is calling out the United States for sending military aid to Israel, right? That's already illegal under federal law. This week, the State Department published a report identifying 4 to 5 Israeli IDF units that have committed atrocious human rights violations. What does that mean? That means that our own government is complicit in following our own laws, not just the international laws that have been passed. So I urge you, if you're looking for an objective standpoint to hang your hat on
One
this
minute.
language, I would look at that. And with that, I think you can walk away feeling that you've made an objective decision as an objective decision maker, right? Unfortunately, folks in our own government has refused to stop military aid because they refuse to look at what this conflict for what it is. It's a genocide, all right? And even though the news says that 4 of the 5 Israeli units have remediated those actions, one continues today to operate, to conduct military operations in Gaza. And so I hope that you take a look at that and reflect and internalize what that means as far as our own international law and what this means as you as an
10
objective
seconds.
decision maker. So if you're looking for something to hang your hat on, I would hang on that. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I might have missed your 30s. That's why I said 10. Sorry about that.
Last, but last in person before we go online, is Evan. Oh, yeah, sorry. Of those who signed up before, we haven't done the backward yet, so.
Thank you. This is somehow warm to be the podium at City Council.
I'm sorry.
Members of the committee, thank you. I'm Evan West. I'm a resident of Ward 7. I'm appearing before you today to urge that you press the City Council to issue a ceasefire statement regarding the ongoing genocide of Palestinian people. I apologize if any part of my testimony is repetitive. I've not been closely following the actions of this specific committee today. Committee members, I'm a professional historian, but it doesn't take a professional to know that throughout history, we have all too many examples of the occurrence of genocide, arguably the ultimate crime against humanity. One of the most distressing elements of this knowledge should be the fact that for every occurrence of the crime, the world was well aware. The information has always been there. The will to act often is not. The harsh facts are present before us. The courage to confront them, perhaps not. The searing truth is here yet again. The conviction to do right remains to be seen. If you have doubt about your ability to make a difference, I urge all of you to realize that inaction today will be remembered as much or more in the annals of history than bravely standing up for what is right. Nonetheless, I'm confident that this committee will choose to be guided by principles similar to those of the person historians widely consider to be the world's foremost genocide prevention expert, Mr. Romeo Dallaire. If you're not familiar with Mr. Dallaire's work, I encourage you to pick up some of his books for some easy nighttime reading. In one of them, Mr. Dallaire writes, quote, "No one can say with the image of the blue and green earth floating in their heads that others don't count as much as we do, that others don't hold the same status as we do, are not as significant as us, or are ultimately not just as human as us," unquote. If you move forward today, and I hope you do, with crafting a resolution calling on our state and national leaders to enact an immediate and permanent ceasefire, to end the blockade of aid, to commit to divestment from Israel, and to permanently dismantle the state of genocide and apartheid, and the people of Salem can walk into history with a modicum of pride, knowing that they did the very least that they could to stand up for the sanctity of human life. Thanks.
All right, we're gonna move to online. Laura, do you have the first person?
And it would
Yes,
be the
it
person
is
who hadn't spoken, just to check.
Alyssa, yeah, Alyssa Kokinis. Am I saying that correctly?
It's pronounced Kokinis, but you're
Oh,
close.
okay. Alyssa, so sorry, just one moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Getting closer, I can't hear it.
You can't hear online?
hearing you, but you know that, I can't hear it.
Oh, of course.
I can't even hear you.
Can I ask you to speak up as loud as you possibly can? And I'm also gonna try to move the. Well,
Sure.
I can come closer.
Yeah.
let me also see if this helps. How about that? Okay, Alyssa? Go right ahead.
Yes.
It's fine, okay, thank you.
All right. Hello, my name is Alyssa Kokinis. I live in Ward 2, and I guess I could have prepared some facts and figures, but I really wanted to come and talk about how 12 years ago, I, as a high schooler, got to attend a writing camp with Arabic speakers. It was supposed to be a cultural immersion program where Arab teenagers would come to the US and then they would study with American teenagers on writing. And at that camp, I met 3 wonderful people, all from Palestine. 2 of them were from the Gaza Strip. And my memories of that camp are of all of us bonding over the media we liked. They taught us the Dabka, and so us American students, we taught them Cotton Eye Joe. And then we had this anthology to kind of commemorate the 2-week camp. And I explicitly remember to this day that my one friend from Gaza, my male friend, he wrote about how he saw his school bombed in 2011 by Israel, and how he saw the loss of his fellow students, his friends, his teachers. And my other friend, my female friend from Gaza, she wrote a piece about imagining what it's like to be stuck under the rubble. And I don't know if she ever did experience that prior to 2011, you know, when there were other things happening in 2008 and beyond, but to imagine them as teenagers like myself going through that is horrifying. And then I did talk to my male friend recently in October, just because October 7th happened and it was awful. And then I checked in with him once I realized that Israel was launching missiles over, and I said, hey, are you okay? Is your family okay? What can I do? And he said, there's nothing you can do. You can just pray for us. And then 2 days later, I saw on his Instagram that his brother went to their local mosque by himself, and that mosque was struck by a missile while he was praying. And his brother was maybe around my age, like mid to late 20s. He was praying. Under what circumstances do you bomb a place of religious worship? Under what circumstances does a family not even have any body parts of this guy, of their son, of their brother to bury? This was in October. It is now May 1st. Too many Palestinians have died. And I urge you to do a ceasefire resolution now for my friends and for everyone in this community, because we all deserve peace.
Thank
you. We now will move on to that second online comment, Laura.
Sorry, it's a written comment. Aaron, do you want me to read it?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, so this came from Aaron Snyder. It says, my name is Aaron Snyder. I live in West Salem. I am a member of the Oregon State Bar and spent several years working with the state taxing authority as a policy analyst. I will keep this very brief. Whatever your personal feelings are with regards to Palestine, a ceasefire is the only acceptable policy from a fiscal, environmental, and most importantly, a humanitarian standpoint. The world cannot afford this. Even if you just look at dollars and cents, we cannot afford to continue supporting this war.
Thank you. Laura, were there any other online comments that were new?
No, but I was not able to ask everyone that is on here if they wanted to give comment. So, I mean, there are a couple that have given comment before too, but I don't know if you wanted to.
Thank you so much. One point of
Check in.
clarification for the commission might be, if you want to pause here, you had the initial lists that arrived that you heard from, and I know you also wanted to have some time for discussion. One option would be to pause and have discussion, and then for those who wish, return to public comment, or you could continue to take public comment and likely extend your meeting time, but just clarifying some choices for you. And welcome, Hamadi. I'm glad you're here.
Some people that are in person have not had the opportunity.
Yeah, we're aware, and we're so sorry. We may need to be limiting the public comment tonight depending on the commission, so we took the names at the beginning. I'm sorry. We may be able to hear everybody. Thanks for clarifying.
So right now, written, we have 11 people in person signed up. 9 of those have not spoken before. So commissioners, you want to proceed with the no's, meaning like no verbal or written public comment?
No previous.
Correct, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So point of time, just to make sure you're all clear, that'd take you till just before 8 o'clock. So I just want to make sure you're comfortable with that.
Well,
That's okay. You're welcome to extend the meeting, and
So-
several
so-
of you express willingness. Just
so
check.
now that Hamadi
9
is
times
here,
3.
now that Hamadi is here, welcome, Hamadi. We should, I would like to revisit the question of whether folks can stay later,
Great.
just so we can get a sense, and I know. We all work, you know, we are all unpaid. And, you know. Today was also May Day for me, and I've been out and about, so. I get it. But
I will
if
say-
folks have an appetite for staying later, I think that would be best both for conversation.
I'll stay. It's been like a 14-hour day, but I'll stay. So, yes, for me.
I think if people are willing to stay, then they can stay, and if they absolutely cannot, then they cannot, and we can always reconvene afterwards. You can reach out to me and I can fill you in on anything that's missed. Anything.
But we want to wait.
We need a quorum. Oh, well.
If you want to take action, you need to have a quorum, and right now you're one above your quorum.
And Robert has to leave, has a hard leave day.
I can switch to virtual on the way, so it's in about 5 minutes, but then I can tune back in virtually.
Sounds good.
So
That
just
would be
develop
appreciated.
it and then reach us, so.
All right.
So in light of that, let's continue.
Okay. We will go to, Finn.
Before I go.
Oh, sorry.
So are we going, we're continuing, but the people we're continuing with have not yet had the chance to speak? Is that
Correct. And then we're gonna
Okay.
circle back to people who have given a public comment, and give 2 minutes.
Well, that's more than half an hour. So
Let's
just
cross
make
that bridge
sure-
when we get there.
Okay.
I'd like
I
to
just
hear.
want to
from-
make sure that the people who haven't had a chance to speak, that's all.
Okay, so we'll move forward with the not yet talk.
And Robert, thank you for watching. Robert's gonna watch the Zoom for me in case anyone new comes in. Thank you, Robert.
All
I'm
right.
doing my best.
Next we have Finn. Whenever you are ready.
A ceasefire resolution has been pushed another week in the name of needing to hear both sides and possibly adding language to reflect this. In most cases, I can understand needing to hear all perspectives. However, this is not one of them. We do not need to give a platform or worse, part of this resolution to those who are calling the last 200 days of genocide Israel's right to defend itself or calling it a war. The ethnic cleansing of Palestinians did not start on October 7th. Promoting these ideas shows a lack of knowledge or downright denial of the last 70+ years of occupation of the Palestinian people and their land. The reason for this resolution should not be to appease all sides. The only reason this resolution should even exist is to support Palestinians. Israel has been indiscriminately killing Palestinians by the tens of thousands, destroying all infrastructure, schools, access to medical system, not to mention the massacres of innocent people trying to receive aid that they only need because of the international crimes Israel has committed against Palestinians. They've been stripped of every single thing a human needs to survive day to day to live, let alone be part of a war where they are defending themselves. Let's call it what it is, genocide. Adding in both sides' language will put this Human Rights Commission on the wrong side of history. Israel receives billions of dollars in military aid from the US annually, every single year. Can you truly in good conscience call this a war? With everything we have seen with our own eyes, can this Human Rights Committee not admit that this is a genocide that needs to stop immediately and that doing so has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with being anti-Semitic? When you're asked in the future, what did you do when there was literally genocide happening in front of your eyes? Will you look back with regret because you catered to the feelings and language of the oppressor? Or will you look back knowing you did everything in your power to support the oppressed and know you were on the right side of history?
Thank you. Next we have Farah. And whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Farah, and I'm a lifelong resident of Salem. I am also Palestinian. Both of my parents were born in Palestine. I'm here today to urge the Human Rights Commissioners to call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire and end the genocide that Israel is committing against Palestinians in Gaza, as well as an end to all military aid that the United States provides to Israel. These past few meetings, and as well as today, I have heard concerns that calling for a ceasefire and an end to the genocide somehow erases the history of Jewish people and their struggles. It is very important that we get clear that it is the history of the Palestinians that is being erased, not the Jews. It is Palestinian holy sites, mosques, and churches that are being bombed in Gaza, not temples in Israel. multiple mosques have been bombed. The third oldest church in the entire world, which was located in Gaza, was bombed and destroyed by Israel. It is Palestinian schools and universities that are being blown up. There are currently no universities left in Gaza. Entire bloodlines of Palestinian families have been wiped out by Israel in a single airstrike. Among the families with the highest number of casualties is the El-Sal family, who lost 89 family members, including 18 children under the age of 10. Palestinian cemeteries have also been bombed, and Palestinian graves have been bulldozed by the Israeli military, and corpses have been uprooted from their graves. Not even the dead are safe from Israel's atrocities. It is the Palestinians themselves who are literally being erased from the earth. Israel's goal since its creation is to erase Palestinians from Palestine and any evidence that a Palestine ever existed in order to succeed in their Zionist colonial settler project. Extreme language is necessary to describe extreme situation, and this is the most extreme situation. Genocide is the most serious thing in my opinion, and this can't be sugar-coated to make people more comfortable. There are only two sides to this issue. You're either against genocide or you are for it.
30 seconds.
We have the opportunity to be on the right side of history, and there's nothing anti-Semitic about this. Palestinians are being killed tonight. We can't wait any longer. It's been 3 weeks. We must call for a ceasefire. Thank you.
Virtual, Xander, was Xander the written comment?
Yeah, that's something.
Okay. Okay.
I had a speaking
comment.
think, yeah, he wanted to make another comment, and also Taylor Lane wants to make comment.
Xander, have you given a comment before?
I've provided written comment before.
And
Okay.
Taylor Lane has provided comment.
Okay, so we will circle back to you.
What we're doing just to check in, and also just I recognize how difficult this conversation is, and I know many are having a lot of thoughts and feelings and want to acknowledge that. The commission's assessing hearing from people who they hadn't heard from, either in written or verbal comment prior to tonight. And then they'll pause and reassess and check about being able to hear from people that they've heard from before. So just a sense of where we are.
Next, we have Fayed.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Fayyad. I'm a resident of Salem in the Fourth Ward. I grew up in Palestine and I moved to the US for college. I engaged in a lot of conversations around Palestine and Israel when I was in college, and I often noticed that in many situations like this, the pro-Israeli camp would come into the meeting, and they would project highly exaggerated emotions and crying and screaming and demonstrate fear for their life in a campus setting in an elite university in the Midwest. And then also throw out a lot of red herrings and distractions that really, at the end of the day, I was confused, and it was basically had the effect of really confusing everybody to say, we're paralyzed, we can't make a decision, we just have to leave this alone. Later, I came across a document called the Hasbara Handbook. It is literally a propaganda handbook that the pro-Israeli activists are handed and trained on, and it calls those two tactics by name. Go exaggerate your emotions, cry, be loud, pretend to break down, and also distract them from the facts. Throw things that are not relevant. And the reason was to make those who are trying to decide really not decide and leave things alone. Because if you do not do anything, you enable the oppressor. You enable those who have the power and oppressing and killing people. Let me be clear. The bar here your efforts in considering a resolution for ceasefire are highly appreciated and truly monumental, given where the country is today. But we set the bar very, very low. We're not asking you to go fight on behalf of the oppressed. We're not asking you to take a political stand on Palestine and Israel. We're not asking you to see this room between those who were kufiyas and were yarmulkes. All we're saying, call for a ceasefire. That's how low the bar is. Just call for a ceasefire, which means call for people to stop being killed. That's all. We can look at atrocities around the world, in Ukraine, in oppression of human rights in Iran, in China, but the US is not enabling those. The United States is enabling those with our tax dollars. The only reason Israel can do this is because the US is providing military support and political cover. That's why we're obligated to speak up at a minimum. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have David.
Late, but I hope you acknowledge that as you sat down, the genocide of the indigenous people that allowed you to occupy this lovely space in Salem, this beautiful land that we were all at then. So my name is David Klein. I speak for myself and none other with my comments. I am Jewish and a child of Holocaust survivors. My family immigrated to the United States from England when I was a child. They themselves fled Austria in 1939, but not before losing many families to members to the Nazi death machine. In my own life, I have traveled and experienced so much. I spent part of 1971 and all of 1973 in Israel, learning much of the various peoples that inhabit that diverse and beautiful landscape. I had friends from the Christian and Muslim Arab communities as well as Jewish inhabitants. Some were identified as Israeli, but all called the landowners of Palestine home. My observation was that these were people far more alike than not, and certainly more alike than those of us not of Palestine and Israel. This is indeed a hope to all three peoples and many others. Unlike diaspora Jews, there is no other home for any of them. I was there for the 1973 Yom Kippur War, and even spent time staying and working in one of the kibbutzim that was overrun during the October 7 attacks. Which brings me to the point of tonight's discussion and my perspective to share with you. October 7 was a brutal attack against Jews not seen since my parents' generation in Europe. Israel's response, again in my opinion, was initially justifiable in search of a foe that disappears into the crowds. However, and a big however, that response has long since lost its justification, and again, in my view, has become an extension of the political desperation of the Israeli parties in power, and specifically one man, Benjamin Netanyahu. The death and destruction of so many children and innocent bystanders by Jews has no antecedent in Jewish history. I personally have been calling upon for an unconditional ceasefire and withdrawal to previously recognized borders for some time. Vengeance was sought and achieved many months ago. Nothing but the continued slaughter has done anything to free the Israeli hostages. The Israeli government has slowly been snatching defeat from the hands of victory. I'm not alone in this call, including from those inside the country. Understand me here, please. Any statements that should be a statement about Israeli policies, not Israeli proper. I would ask that any statement be about Gazan policies as carried out in the Gazan Palestinian people's name by Hamas. I concur in a statement condemning these policies and practices. If you cannot understand the complexity of the situation, perhaps you should reconsider the value of an imbalanced resolution of support. These are difficult times for the affected peoples, not the least of which is us diaspora Jews, that true to the history are ultimate victims. In the end, there is truly just one solution, the creation of a Palestinian state. Such a state that either mold one state or two state, but the self-determination and security of all peoples of the area is a must. The time is now.
Next, we have Marvin. And whenever you're ready.
I'm Marvin Salas. I grew up in Mount Angel. I've been a business owner in Salem for 58 years. In 1960, '67, the Six-Day War. I was 22 years old, and I have supported the Israeli experiment my entire life. Whether that experiment is going to continue, I think the Quds brutality is putting that experiment at grave risk. I'm encouraged by your effort. You know, when we reach the level of violence, we can no longer talk to one another. We need feedback from the outside. We need a place like Salem, Oregon, like the city of Salem, to provide feedback to the warring factions. They can't talk about this. They need help from the outside. So, you know, the last thing I will say is there is something worse than killing a child. Watching in silence. So what you people are doing here is, it's the highest thing we can do as human beings. Help other people who are killing children. And that's what I applaud what you people are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin? Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Reverend Robin Lunn. I am the pastor at First Congregational Church downtown, and I think it's Ward 3. First Congregational has been a Just Peace church for over 30 years. We have been an open and affirming church for 30 years. Part of what the United Church of Christ and this congregation has sought to do from its very inception in 1852 is be a people who are seeking to recognize the humanity of others. That is in its founding DNA. As a person who is of faith, I'm always discomforted when faith is used to justify violence against other people. I don't care what your faith is, but if you're using God as your justification to kill, for me, that is an offense against the very thing that we say we believe. And so while there are many different thoughts and feelings about the state of Israel and the occupied territories, in the same way that we have many thoughts and feelings about the United States, it is very critical that we separate the religious aspect of this from the facts on the ground. As a person of faith, I believe that all life has value. All human beings are made in the image of God. And as such, I believe that nobody has the right to wipe any other human person, whether it is in a capital killing in the death chambers in this country, or in the bombing of people who are simply trying to exist somewhere else. What you're doing is not necessarily going to have any impact on the people in this conflict, but it will have an impact on how we in this community seek to live out our lives as people who see one another as human beings of more worth and dignity than the dirt. I commend you for being willing
30 seconds
to engage in this incredibly difficult conversation, to make space. And I hope, and I will say, I pray that what comes out of this is not just a statement, but an opportunity for us to dialogue as a community across our differences, so that we do not become people of hard hearts who are willing to see one another as insignificant and therefore able to just simply be killed. Thank you.
I'm sorry if I get this wrong, Mesli? And whenever you're ready.
What is going on in Palestine is not a war, it is a genocide. Language in the resolution should call it what it is, a genocide. Calling it a war takes accountability away from Israel's actions and minimizes the suffering of the Palestinian people. This is not a conflict. Israel is illegally occupying Palestine and is actively ethnically cleansing it. This is not a conflict of religion. Many Jewish and Muslim communities all over the world are coming together to fight against the Zionist movement and to end the occupation. There cannot be peace until Israel has ended its occupation. It is important this resolution denounce Zionism and Israel as a state. Recognizing Israel as a state validates their violence. Israel does not represent all Jewish people, and denouncing Zionism is not anti-Semitic. Zionism is rooted in white supremacy and anti-Semitic itself. Hurl, the founder of Zionism, allied himself with Jewish oppressors and wrote in his diaries how lowly he thought of Jewish people. Furthermore, it's important to investigate the propaganda Israel is pushing. They claim they're acting out of self-defense, saying Hamas is a terrorist group using people as human shields in order to justify indiscriminate killing of over 40,000 people. Many of the violent acts that Zionists claim Hamas has carried out have been debunked, some even by Joe Biden. Terrorism, a political label used as propaganda to undermine and discredit the Palestinian struggle to self-determination, gives legal power to bomb, torture, arrest, incarcerate, and invade. The same tactic was used by the United States against the Black Panther Party and activist Assata Shakur. Israel is bombing universities, historic sites, and neighborhoods. They make people strip before they shoot them and pee on their dead bodies. Ambulances are targeted. Hamas only took Israelis to exchange them for the 5,000 political prisoners being held by Israel, who are being tortured. Those same captives shook the hands of their captors, and there were no reports of violence against them compared to Palestinian hostages who are being raped and tortured by Israel military.
1 minute.
Israeli forces recently raped a pregnant woman in front of her husband and children, threatening to kill them if they close their eyes. After they raped her, they killed her. So who is a real terrorist?
Thank you. Savannah? Whenever you're ready.
I feel awkward turning my back to you all, so I apologize. Paklisi. Gewasasa, Savannah, Numo Dakish, Ibik Sikni. Hello, my name is Savannah. I'm Klamath in Modoc. I come from tribes down south, Klamath Falls area, California. And I didn't prepare anything to say, so I'll speak from my heart because you guys are human rights committee or commissioners. So I want to say that when I first heard about what was going on, and I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know anything about this prior, but when I first heard about this going on, it was so shocking to me and so painful in a way that it was reminiscent to something that I knew before. This is something I knew like down deep in my stomach. I didn't understand what was going on, but as I was seeing it play out, October 13th, 14th, 15th, I seen the most horrific things I've ever seen in my life. And I told myself then, and what I told my son who's with me, and my other children and my husband, we have to bear witness to this. No matter how painful this is, we have to bear witness to this. And when I think about those things I've seen, a father holding his children in bags, Reem, Hind, the ones that were ran over, the ones that were buried alive. There's so many things that are reminiscent to what happened to me and my people. And that's how I knew that, in the pit of my stomach. That's how I knew that, without having to be explained which side is right, which side is wrong. I knew it. And I feel bad because I know we have a lot of people in here who are Jewish. And I feel though they feel upset, and I can understand that because Hitler used the same tactics from what they did to the native people to the Jewish people. Nobody deserves to suffer that way. Nobody deserves to be hurt that way. I would not want that for any Jewish person. I would not want that for any Palestinian or Natives or any other person. All of our children deserve to live.
30 seconds.
So with that being said, I think that we need to think about what is leading us to fear and what is leading us to hate, and go far the other way from that. If your religion, like our pastor here said a minute ago, is guiding you into a way that you know isn't right, regardless of religion or any other thing, you have to know what's right and wrong. And at the end of the day, our babies deserve to live.
Thank you. That was our last no person, who hasn't given a public comment. So we're gonna move to our, well, I guess, commissioners. We have come to that bridge.
Would it help you to have a sense of how many people have provided comment that would like to provide more? And Hamadi, earlier in the discussion, there was a thought about providing 2 minutes. But we need to clarify.
Right now, we have 7 people, and that includes Xander and Taylor virtual, who have given public comment before, who are signed up.
Maybe my question is if they're gonna repeat comments we've already heard, or did they have something additional? That makes a difference.
Valid. 14 people total.
14 people total.
No, 7 people in
people
14
total.
minutes if we do the 2 minutes.
Jacob,
So
I apologize. I don't
let's
think we can
provide-
do questions
Oh,
at
I was
this
just
moment.
gonna clarify something. Since there are a lot of people who might have other things like you mentioned, for religious reasons, it might be good to hear those people say other.
I would-
Say right.
Thank you.
I would second that, and I would like to provide a forum where everybody can say what they would like to say in this meeting.
Okay, great. So 2 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. And do you want to go to Zoom and then back to in person?
Sure, why not? We'll start on Zoom. So I have Xander first.
And just a reminder, we're at 2 minutes per person now. But okay.
So Xander, whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'll talk quickly. My name is Xander Houston. I'm in Ward 1. I'm a history student at Willamette University. I'm also an educator. As I'm preparing for final exams right now, every single university in Gaza has been destroyed. Since October 7th, thousands of students and hundreds of educators have been murdered by the state of Israel or die every day. Israeli soldiers fire at colleges and UN schools for refugee children. All this is according to the UN, of course, not misinformation. And it's, of course, illegal under international humanitarian law. So I'd ask rhetorically, of course, to the other speakers, does this seem like an accidental, unfortunate byproduct of an attack against Hamas fighters? No, of course not. It's part of a larger project to render Gaza uninhabitable, a genocidal project. This much is clear. And also, on this point of condemning Hamas, I think we should make a historical analogy. I think this provides some moral clarity. If you were to condemn, for example, South African apartheid, would you also condemn the various violent incidents that Black South Africans engaged in, including the killings of civilians? No, clearly not. That would be repugnant, and I think that's obvious to everyone at the meeting. At least it should be, because that violence was the result of the much greater violence of apartheid, and the same applies to the current situation. Even if you don't think Israel is an apartheid state, which it is, since the violence Israel commits is so clearly much bigger and the fundamental cause of what we're witnessing since October 7th, and even before, the same logic applies. So you need to ask why Palestinians engage in armed conflict against the state of Israel, or to continue with the analogy, why Black South Africans engage in armed conflict against the Afrikaners. When I talk to Zionists, they tend to respond with something along the lines of what we heard today, that there's some essential, immutable hatred of Jews, and that's hard to say why it is. But of course, this ignores the long history of interfaith and interethnic flourishing that's necessary. The cause of the violence is Zionism and the creation of Israel, which necessitated the expulsion of the Arab population. Zionist leaders recognized this at the time, whether the Likud party or the Labour Party is in charge. It's this moment when the violence exploded, culminating today in the genocide in Gaza. So, given these facts, it's quite obvious that a condemnation of Hamas just serves to obfuscate the purpose of a statement like this, to
I
provide moral
apologize
clarity.
for the interruption.
All right, thank you. We are now going to move to Taylor, virtual.
Okay. Hello, my name is Taylor Lane and I'm a resident of Ward 5. Last night I watched a video of a child, maybe 4 years old, taking their final agonizing breaths. After their last breath had passed, the camera angle changed, making visible the exposed flesh of this child's face, along with their missing right eye. The child's head had been bandaged to stop the bleeding caused by the blunt force trauma of a bomb, likely funded by US taxpayer dollars. In the days since our last Human Rights Commission meeting, approximately 306 Palestinians have died. On Wednesday, while we were discussing the need to delay this resolution being passed, 43 Palestinians were killed. Thursday, 51 Palestinians were killed. Friday, 32 Palestinians were killed. Saturday, 66 Palestinians were killed. Sunday, 34 Palestinians were killed. Monday, 47 Palestinians were killed. And yesterday, 33 Palestinians were killed. And right now, more are dying. Those numbers are likely inaccurate, with an estimated 10,000 plus still missing under the rubble. Do you remember Sabrine Aru Judah, the premature baby that was born an orphan?
1 minute.
Died on Thursday, the day after our last meeting. Every day that we push this resolution out, innocent human beings die. This commission and our city should have spoken out months ago about the atrocities that Palestinians are facing daily, but to delay any longer is a complete negligence. I do recommend and encourage that the commission change the language on the draft resolution to consistently reflect the truth of what is happening in Gaza, instead of words like crisis and war, say what it really is, a genocide. I demand that this resolution be
30
passed to the
seconds.
city council upon the closure of this evening's meeting. Time is a luxury we no longer have. It is also worth noting that many of your constituents were marching the streets outside the state capitol today, demanding a ceasefire in Gaza. The people have spoken. Thank you for your time, and I hope that you will take this feedback into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're going back to in person. The next one that we have is Jordan B.
Hello, my name is Jordan. I just have a few, I guess, things to address that we've heard brought up today. First, I also do not believe we should call this a war. How can it be a war when one side has nuclear weapons and using white phosphorus, and the other does not have the ability to power heavy weapons to dig their massacred babies out of the rubble of their houses, their schools, their hospitals? Further, we heard reference to the sexual abuse that might have, or that did occur on October 7th. And if we consider this, then let's also consider that the UN has proved that Israel also has raped Palestinian individuals. We've heard about the hostages that were taken on October 7th, and let's release all the hostages, but let's include the 4,500 Palestinians that Israel has in detention, or the 310 of those that are in administrative detention, which means they have no right to a trial, something that is against the 6th Amendment of our country.
1 minute.
Next, we suspended this meeting or pushed a week for Passover, which was a good decision. However, I also asked, they brought up, did we invite Jews? Did you guys all, why didn't you invite Jews? I just asked, did you also, if you consider that, did you invite Muslims? Did you invite Christians? We paused this week for Passover. Will we pause this meeting at 8:18 so Muslim practitioners or Muslim individuals here can do their evening prayers? Finally, we heard about the tsunami of homelessness that this town faces, and that is a travesty. And perhaps part of the $2.4 million that our money is using to fund this genocide, perhaps some of that $2.4 million could be used in our own city, on our own people that are suffering. And just as my last note, once again, Hamas, Palestinians do not have the right to have a military. Palestinians do not. So Hamas filled that void. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Sean. And whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for having me this evening. My name is Sean. I'm a member of the Salem Jewish community. I have professional credentials, but the fact is professional credentials are not relevant here tonight. This is not a court hearing. This body is not setting policy. I have no doubt the intentions of the commission in this matter are aimed at encouraging prosperity, generally speaking. It is always the case, tragically, that human suffering comes with armed conflict. Regardless of the circumstances, it is a tragedy. I know people who are personally affected on both sides of this conflict. It is a tragedy. There is no mistake about that. As we have seen here tonight, the situation now is that you have local people who are split over events which are thousands of miles away and over which this commission and the city council has no power or influence, instead of finding ways that the community could be connecting around our common humanity. The Constitution dictates that the United States Supreme Court has reaffirmed that U.S. foreign policy is solely the province of the federal government.
1 minute.
Our representatives, senators, and the president have the responsibility of representing us on these matters, and I encourage everybody to reach out to their federal level representatives. The fact is, this body is outside the authority of the ordinance that governs it. I hope you have seen the deep moral hazard that you have stumbled into by stepping beyond the scope of your duties. Let this be a lesson learned. It is a matter of technical fact that you cannot craft a statement that could possibly represent the concerns and perspectives of all of your constituents. Your best and only appropriate action for the limited scope of your authority is to withdraw the statement in its entirety. You can promote civility within this community better by remaining silent than by trying to craft a statement which cannot possibly represent all the interests and perspectives of your constituents. This issue will not be solved or impacted here other than by solidifying a point of division within the community. I hope you'll recognize this mistake and correct your course before you venture further into terrain beyond your skill and capacities.
Thank you. Next, we have Margaret. Okay. Yesenia? And whenever you're ready.
So my name is Yesenia Salinas. You've all seen me here before, but I'm not saying things today. First, I just want to say thank you for considering the ceasefire resolution, which over 100 cities in the US have passed because the federal government is ignoring what's right. And I do think it's really amazing that the Human Rights Commission values the voices of all of Salem's community members, which is why I have some comments from several Salem members that I've been asked to share, that they've shared onto this petition that has about 223 signatures. Joaquin has a copy. I can print you a copy. I can also email you a copy. The comments are Sabrina, it's the least we can do. Charlie, free Palestine. Todd, free Palestine. Beery, end it. Evelyn, please cease fire. Cameron, please do what you can to stop sending support to Israel's genocide. People are going to look back at this and wonder why America supported the actions of a fascist government in their genocide. It's religious extremism and wrong. The Palestine people were there before the creation of Israel. The Jews and Islam were peaceful and were friends with each other, but this nationalistic ideology came into play and ruined it. It's wrong and not at all what God would want. Natalie, calling for a ceasefire is literally the bare minimum our city can do for people in Gaza and Palestine. We should have done it months ago. It's easy and it doesn't cost us anything. Permanent ceasefire now. End the occupation, liberation for Palestine. Rebecca, I urge this council to vote yes in a permanent ceasefire. Khadija, stop funding Israel's war crimes and mass genocide. Permanent ceasefire now. Kimberly, get on it, Salem. Brian, I am asking for immediate ceasefire. Kyle, ceasefire now. Salem City Council can change their course from full-throated support of a genocidal occupation force to supporting humanitarian action and encouraging a lasting ceasefire in Gaza. All it takes is to say we support a ceasefire. I have more if you would like me to share what the community is thinking, but.
And then the last person that we have signed up is Sabrina. Whenever you're ready.
Hello, my name is Sabrina Abu Khair. I am Palestinian. My parents were both born in Palestine. According to the World Health Organization, on average, every 10 minutes, a Palestinian child is killed. So that means since we begun this meeting an hour and a half ago, about 13 Palestinian children have likely been killed. This could have been prevented if there was a ceasefire in place. I cannot imagine why some people would be offended by a call for a ceasefire, particularly considering that it means an end to violence on all sides. Furthermore, I've heard lots of questions about whether or not this is genocide, and genocide is a legal term, so let's refer to what the highest court in the world has said, and they have ruled that this is a possible case of genocide. In addition to that, human rights experts, genocide scholars, scholars of genocide, the UN experts, leading UN officials have all called this a genocide. So it is the very, very least that we can do. I reviewed the drafts resolution and I strongly support it. And again, didn't start on October 7th. Before October 7th, we're a population of 13 million people globally, and 6 million of us have been registered as refugees. So we've been forced out of our homes.
Do we want to hear more public comment? Do we have one? No, we have no one signed up. Commissioners? Do we want to hear?
I want to make an announcement
Um,
whenever it's possible.
okay. Thank you, Rabbi.
My name is Rabbi Eli Herb. I'm the rabbi at Temple Beth Shalom. Been listening to the comments online. I would really love an opportunity to especially speak with the Palestinian people who spoke here. Hearing your testimony really broke my heart. And I really want to hear from you. And I really hope we can come together and form some kind of coalition of solidarity in this town. I've been asking for that since October 7th. I really hope that after this meeting, you'll need some time, give me some time to talk about that possibility. I really see you as my brothers and sisters. I really hope we can come together.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, are we interested in hearing more public comment?
There's no one else signed up, correct?
Correct.
If there was anybody else, then I would say I'd go for it, but if not, then we should just go ahead and proceed.
Okay.
Yeah, I do need to head up, but
Absolutely.
I can log back on. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Sign up for fucking comment.
Commissioners? So the question was, for online folks, is can people who have already spoken tonight, speak again?
I would like to.
I think it opens us up to, I think it opens up a revolving door of comments. You know, if we start the cycle over, we would have to then provide that opportunity for everybody, and then we could end up in a circular conversation all evening.
I agree. I'd like to move on
Okay.
with our discussion.
Like written testimony, is that that's been read next to privately, for the time, or is that read afterwards privately?
Great question. So the question was about previously submitted written testimony. So commissioners get that in an email packet beforehand. And so we do read that beforehand. So yeah, thank you for that question. Okay. So moving on, so now we're moving into our action and discussion items around the statement, resolution, proclamation, whatever we decide on. Commissioners, you should have received Um, here is a draft of the proclamation. Is this the?
This is the resolution.
This is the resolution.
Yes.
So that's the draft of the resolution.
What? Can't hear you.
I apologize for my disruption. I'm just gonna sit up here just so that I can keep an eye on the Zoom. Apologies.
Like when you pass it.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So do we want to start here?
I think it's important to say for all the people in the room, and I don't know, you know, if everyone has been following all 3 of the meetings, but that the Human Rights Commission has been asked to recommend language. So whatever we vote on tonight is not going to become the resolution or become the proclamation. It's what we're recommending to the mayor. And then he's gonna do what he's gonna do, or however that, or the council, the city council. Gretchen probably could talk about it better than I, but I just want to make it clear to the folks that are listening to us, do what we're here to do, that we're finalizing a recommendation.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, quick note, I understand it's tough to hear. If anybody in the back is struggling to hear, the audio is not great, feel free to come closer up to some of the open seats. And she clarified any decision that the commission may make tonight is a recommendation to mayor and council, but the commission itself is advisory and does not speak for the city. So they're advising mayor and council, who then would make a decision.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, do we want to
Well,
start? Go ahead, Joaquin.
I wanted to begin our portion of the speaking this evening by thanking you all for being here and for the many hours, both in public spoken testimony and we're in excess of almost 60 pages of written testimony over the last few weeks. You know, I appreciate that this is a difficult and emotional issue. And I just wanted to mention that before we go into this portion of the decision-making process. I'll have more to say about that later, but I'll leave it there for now.
Okay.
So thank you for being here. Thank you for the energy and the time and attention you've invested in this process.
All right, commissioners, do we want to start discussing the resolution?
Yeah.
Resolution or the cover letter? You wanna take them one by one?
Let's do the cover letter last.
Okay,
Can I recommend that?
let's start with the resolution, the whereas.
My recommendation is that we begin just in order. Line,
Yeah, okay.
clause by
Yeah.
clause by clause, and at the end, we can pause at the whereas and pause at the end of the resolution.
Okay.
For commissioners, this appears, and for audience, it's supposed to in 2 separate papers, 2 sheets of paper. And any additions we'd like to make, as opposed to edits, we can make at the end of the process. Is that fair? At the end of going through each.
Oh, so like line by, like not line, but like statement by statement, and then like any edits,
Yeah.
and then move on? Beautiful.
And then at the end of each page, if we have additional clauses to add, then we can do it that way.
Great, that's kind of framework.
Quick point of clarification, I'm concerned I'll be needing to have the record, and I've handed out all my copies. Is there a
Oh, I
blank?
have one extra.
You have an
for you,
extra?
Gretchen.
Oh.
If you want, I printed,
Okay.
my printer kept printing.
Thank
Printer
you,
kept printing,
good,
printed.
okay. I appreciate it, just because I want to make sure to capture your discussion.
I
Thank you.
also really wanted to clarify for members of the audience that this resolution was drafted by staff, by city staff. Yeah, putting together your understanding of language.
Actually, Kelsey drafted.
Oh, Kelsey drafted
So
it.
to clarify.
God bless you, please. It was drafted by Vice Chair Kelsey.
It was, yes, it was, and
It all shifted.
It all
So I just
should,
wanted to clarify.
okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Who's asking the question? Please.
What's the source of the 2,357,000? What's the source of that number? Salem has spent, Salem taxpayers, 2,357,000. What's the source of that number?
Yes, you have that.
Yes, that is in the one. Nobody from Massachusetts.
What's the list of them that starts
From what I've seen, yes.
from the source?
Yeah.
Calculator, kind of, right?
Yes.
So the source.
It's a government.
Visualizingpalestine.org, not my tax dollars.
Is that a undivided or?
So, yeah, so basically it breaks down the aid packages that have been proposed and approved and sent. And then does it by like population.
All of that is public record.
So they had extrapolated our income tax and proportioned it out to the US aid to Israel. Is that how they did it?
Right. Or federal tax.
Okay. I think that's a loose thing. I think that's a very loose part of it.
All right,
Okay.
let's begin by
So-
going through the clauses.
Go ahead,
So if I may, I'll just read them out as we go.
please.
The first is, whereas the ongoing war in Gaza has resulted in immense human suffering and loss of life. Okay. So we've heard testimony today around the use of the word war. Some of the testimony suggested that we did not use the word genocide, and that's inaccurate, because at the very end, or in the body of the resolution, we do name it for what it is. But a commissioner is interested in changing the language of war. I can see, atrocities. Is there alternative language that we'd like to use there?
Is that a proposal?
It's a question
Oh.
to commissioners for discussion.
I'd agree with changing it
To,
atrocities, or I liked one of the terms, let me find it. The asymmetrical, what the one lawyer gentleman says. Let's see.
the one lawyer.
Define. Lawyer language.
Hold on, 1 second. So we are discussing as commissioners right now. So any comment or statement or question, will have to be like recognized by the chair. Let's do clarification and then, Todd, I think we're interested in some language that you had said. So Jacob?
I think I found that one meeting, we had decided to genocide, so I wasn't sure if this is related to this.
I can't hear the question.
So the question was, we had voted to make sure that, we include the word genocide.
Yes.
In any statements. So there are several statements that we're gonna be going through. And then,
What is the process to address the commissioners?
I would say that, and this could be, I would say we're kind of done with public comment.
So no one in the whole room should be offering comment.
I would say unless we were asking for some language from Todd.
Is this a hired person by the city who is available to give that definition?
No one's hired by the.
So then why would it be, I'm just saying, why would you use a person who is here, whose credentials you haven't verified and whose definitions you haven't verified? How would that become official in your? So I'm just asking why would a member of because I can provide some definitions as well.
Thank you, Jessica, so much. I appreciate that. And it's so important to have good clarity on the process. So I think what I'm hearing is at this point, I think Kelsey asked the member of the community because they had had a previous conversation
The
and
commissioner had asked
yeah,
to use that language.
to use that particular language and they had received it. So they were clarifying from
Provided by
that.
that person?
Yes, tonight.
Oh, okay.
And so, what,
But provided by that person tonight, not in previous conversation.
Correct.
Tonight, right.
So I can provide a definition. I have a master's degree. I can provide.
So we will take your your comment. We're talking about like the content of the already given comment.
And I think generally at this point, the commission's hoping to have a bit of time to talk as a commission, but they might reach out and ask somebody in the audience a clarifying question or for more information. But generally, they're going to recognize themselves at this point in the discussion.
And would that be based on credentials of the person who is being asked for
Just
information?
meant
It's not a
being a member
thing.
of
It's
the
it's
public.
a question that we'll ask if somebody said something that we want to know a little bit more about. None of us here are credentialed. None of us are city staff. We're all volunteers here, so.
I mean, we all have some credentials at some level. We all have degrees. Some of us have degrees.
I think that let's challenge some of the definitions.
Okay, let's put a pause on this, please. Can we put a pause on this, please? So
So
right now, the commissioners are just asking for some language, that Todd had used. Todd, do you have, what you had said? Do you have that written down?
It was asymmetrical conflict. I just to answer my question. I was looking in the notes. So
Kate, I'm sorry, are you meaning to talk with us or are you?
yeah, I'm just,
Okay.
it was in the notes. It's asymmetrical conflict. We can
Thank
just
you.
close on that.
Thank you, Kate. Kate, thank you. And Kate's a member of the commission. And Todd, I apologize for interrupting you. I was struggling with hearing.
Yeah, just to clarify what I was saying, first they said to me, it's clear it's a genocide, but even if we were to take the argument that it is a war, it would be asymmetrical because the overwhelming amount of casualties are Palestinian families and the wrong that.
Thank you. So the proposal, that's not, is to change the word war to asymmetrical conflict. Commissioner, thoughts?
I like that.
Good. What?
I think Lisa was saying that.
Oh, it was me. No, just good. We're having some audio troubles, Lisa. Thanks for clarifying.
Do we want?
Joaquin, you look like you have other thoughts.
I didn't hear what she said.
You
You
have
look like
other
you have other thoughts.
Oh. So I just, the use of the word, genocide, and we made that, part of the language at the conclusion of the first meeting. And I think I just wanted to clarify for folks who are invested in the use of that word. I think there's, given the resolution, format and structure, there is merit to building concepts and language over the course of a resolution. And so, for example, the use of the word, naming it for what it is as a genocide, appears later in the resolution. And so this is common practice in city resolutions to begin from more elemental precepts and build into concepts. That's the whole point of resolution. You build into a resolution, you resolve that. And so I appreciate that there may be some discernment or ambiguity there, but it is, yes.
So I'm so sorry, but you're saying naming it for what it is, a genocide, as part of this body, you are already saying that that is the definition that you're going with?
On point of parliamentary procedure.
It's not okay to use.
Okay.
I understand.
Parliamentary procedure, you need to be recognized by the chair to speak. So,
Thank you.
So,
yeah, Joaquin.
Well, just for clarity, there are 3 items that appear in the language tonight that we've already voted on. And that was at the conclusion of the first meeting. And they are naming the actions of the state of Israel as a genocide, naming them in violation of international law, and calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. Those items appear in the language that you are seeing tonight and have already been settled on the part of the commission. And so tonight we are trying to approach language that is a complete and final resolution, which will consist of the recommendation we make to city council and mayor, at which time it is their prerogative to adopt it, consider it, and debate it as they wish.
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate
and as another point of contention, at this point, we are discussing it as the HRC and our public comment part is closed, so.
Okay. So asymmetrical, I don't love that. if it's the wish of this body to adopt that, that's fine. It seems a little clinical to me. A little desensitized,
What would you use instead of war?
atrocities.
Atrocities?
Oh, I'm open to asymmetry. I mean, I'm not against it.
I'm okay with that. That's fine.
Am I gonna be the face of this video?
Well, I'm
Oh,
trying to
I know,
get
that's
close
fine.
to you.
That's
That's
fine.
the issue. Yeah.
It really
But
is,
yes.
it's mostly for the
I'll
public's
try to turn
concern,
it.
that they're gonna have to see my
I
face.
know, stop it.
Okay, now.
So we have maybe some energy around the word of atrocities.
I'm just not okay with war. That's just not a thing.
I agree.
It's not a war.
Okay.
So that's not a thing.
I agree.
I would
So-
just suggest violence.
A reminder that we're Okay. not doing public
Just say
comment.
violence.
Thank you for that, but once again, the same as I told her, that public comments have been closed.
Okay. Any preference? Atrocities, asymmetrical?
Atrocities is fine.
Okay.
Great.
Online?
Neutral. I'm neutral.
So clarification, clarification. English is not my first language. Clarification on rules and procedures, Gretchen.
Yeah.
Editing. Is that a motion every time, or what is that? Or do we just kind of make edits as we go and we adopt it as amended at the end?
Can we do it at the end so that way we
You
kind of go through the process?
You can, we'll probably have somebody read quickly any edits to the base, just to confirm everyone's on the
Okay.
same page.
And I can
Yeah.
track those changes. if
Great,
you-
I am too.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Great.
Okay. Do I have the consent of the commission to move on to the next block?
Yes.
Whereas the city of Salem is committed to promoting peace, unity, and respect for all of its residents. So again, building on the precept that we're building a statement here from elemental kind of foundations. I recommend that we amend the language just to read as follows, that the city of Salem holds as a key value compassion and is committed to promoting peace.
And that's from,
Our strategic plan
Yeah.
as a city.
Did you say compassion?
That is one of our core values as a city in our strategic plan.
you say it holds.
And yes,
as
he
a-
did.
And yes, I did.
A key or.
Okay,
Core.
it,
Oh, I see
yeah,
key.
I'm good with that.
Further discussion?
Anyone against?
Moving on, whereas we recognize and stand in solidarity with our Muslim and Jewish communities, reaffirming our commitment to their safety, security, and well-being. Laura, Lisa, Kate?
Good.
Moving on, whereas $2,357,111 of Salem taxpayer dollars have been used to fund Israel's war. Again, the use of the word war. Should we substitute it for atrocities in this clause as well?
About attacks,
Excuse me?
attacks.
I don't know if that,
I'm sorry? Tax what?
Attacks.
Kelsey said attacks, and then I think Kate was jumping in.
yeah, I don't know if that's fully accurate, if it's just, my question is, what is the time frame from that? Spending that money?
That's a good
Is
question.
it a year or is it 2
From
years?
October
Is it 5
7th to date?
From
A
when
month?
we first passed or did an aid package.
Oh.
Okay. I think we should put in a time frame or context of about that money.
Where the
We're
where
going-
it comes from?
So like since, I don't know when that was first passed.
My only concern with that is that the further we go through the process, because we could have that number tonight, we set it out, we pass it in our language, but by the time it goes forward, it could be, that more than likely will be greater.
Yeah, all we need to do, if I can speak, if I may, all we need to do is, as of this time, or as of this writing, just before the 2 million,
Yeah.
Just add those words, as of this writing.
Sure.
And then just amend a war to the language that we used previously.
For consistency.
Yeah.
So do you think it needs like $2 million in the last year? Or in the last 7 months or whatever that looks like, though? I think it needs a time box
Time
on
frame.
that.
Like a beginning.
Or we could go back decades, right? So there needs to be a time frame.
It's, I know, I'm sorry.
All right, so I'm hearing addition of a time frame and substituting war for atrocities.
Is it? It might be a little bit unusual, but would it be possible to like include our reference, our resource for that information? I mean, I kind of agree that having just a number in there without saying where we got it from is.
That's a good question, Kathy, and that's one we posed to Gretchen regarding modeling it off of the City of Seattle resolution. I think they invoked the Wall Street Journal or something of that ilk.
We could like, double check the number.
The city attorney.
Cite the source,
Yeah.
offer the link,
To make
something
sure
along
it's
this.
accurate, because I want to make sure that what we put forward is accurately reflecting whatever the information is.
Okay.
And I'm sure the city attorney will have comments on that in terms of how to, what's the norm for structuring resolution, including that.
Yeah, and that would be at the next.
That would be the
space
next phase of that.
in terms of format.
But we can include it, we can include
You
it.
can include a link or a citation, yeah. Okay. Just looking.
Okay, so I'm hearing time frame, including source, and substituting war for atrocities. Any other comment? Welcome back, Robert. Yeah.
Thank you, Joaquin. It's great to be back.
Do we feel comfortable with that?
Yep.
Your permission to move on? The subsequent clause reads, whereas we share dire concerns with, again, the use of the word war in Gaza, in which over 35,000 Palestinians have been killed as of April 25th, 2024, with the exact amount unknown due to the inability to count the dead as the health system collapses. Another 80,000 injured and several thousand more reported missing and presumed to be dead under the rubble.
Outside of the war part, everything stands.
I would say with the war, but I would also like it to be as of whether, say we adopt the resolution. How about this? Figures to the extent possible, date of. So we resolve tonight, today's the 30th, or no, today's first.
Today's the first, indeed.
Today's the first. Does that sound fair? Just as a rule, if we
Yeah.
encounter this again. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So to date, and then substituting war for atrocity. Do I have the permission to move on?
Yes.
Whereas the Israeli government and Israeli Defense Forces, through violence and blocking humanitarian aid, are violating international law and enacting genocide against the Palestinian people.
Stands.
Thoughts on through violence and blocking humanitarian aid are widely acknowledged by the international community as being in violation of international law and enacting genocide against the Palestinian people. So the change would be taking out violating and saying widely acknowledged to be by the international community as being in violation of international law.
I'm fine with that.
Is anyone not comfortable with that change?
There are thumbs up, Kelsey.
Good.
Yep, good.
You got that language open?
Yeah, thank you. Do I have the permission to move on?
Contribution.
Whereas we are deeply sympathetic to the 2 million Palestinian civilians who have now been displaced and for the Israeli lives that have been impacted. My reaction is sympathy.
Understands.
Well,
Do you have a way to quantify for?
quantify maybe, but I'm, you know, Sympathy is a weak word to me. Mourning, maybe. Is there other words? I may be totally out of place here.
See what you're saying. I don't know that I have a better.
Something stronger.
Better option.
We feel bad. Yeah,
As long as it doesn't come off like, oh gee, darn, that's horrible, let's see it.
well, that's what sympathy comes off to me as.
Gotcha.
I agree, Joaquin. I think sympathy can sometimes be condescending and it's. So,
I
So
couldn't have seen that
empathetic?
box the word horrifying.
Kate was still in the sentence.
Oh, I didn't hear what she was saying.
Kate.
I was saying, I agree with you. I think sympathy because it's not like, sometimes it's like. It's different than empathy. I think it can sometimes come off as condescending. So I agree to change that if we can find something that just fits better in a sentence.
So should we
Would,
hold that?
would compassion? Compassion?
Hold it.
Oh, we have compassion.
Lisa suggested compassion, deeply compassionate about.
Lisa, can I propose we are horrified?
If you're going to take comments from the.
We're
then
not.
He heard that and he said, I heard from the peanut box, so he is taking suggestions
All right.
from the floor.
Yeah, from here on out, no, no suggestions of language from anyone, please. Thank you.
Could we say we're,
Sorry,
I just say we hold that one
okay,
until we can circle back to that one, and so that give us some time to think of a
Okay.
different word for that.
that's fine.
And just a second, I think Lisa, Commissioner Novak, you were trying to jump in?
no, it was
I'm
me.
done now.
Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I'm
Laura,
good now.
sorry.
I was just gonna say, if we say we are deeply affected by,
May-
Deeply affected by.
Robert, did you have something?
Yeah, what if we went something along the lines of, we are immensely horrified that 2 million Palestinian civilians have been displaced. I guess it doesn't really tie well with the remainder of that sentence, so disregard.
I just say we put a pin in that one and circle back to it, because that's to get the language correct, that would want to take.
That's fine.
So,
We can come back to that. Next clause. Whereas the people of Gaza face further devastation from the lack of food, water, sanitation, other basic necessities, with over 500,000 Gazans reported starving by the United Nations. Nothing?
anyone else?
Whereas we condemn Hamas's attack on Israeli citizens that took place on October 7th, 2023.
Since we are mentioning the number of Palestinians, would it be fair and accurate to mention the 1,200 Israelis that were?
Hamadi, I feel worried that the commissioners online can't hear you. I could be wrong. You guys hearing okay?
Yeah, hearing okay.
Oh, okay, forgive me. Okay.
Including the number of Israeli casualties.
Yeah.
Commissioners?
I think that's respectful.
Yeah, definitely. A loss of life is a loss of life, so they deserve.
Yeah.
So that took place on October 7th, 2023 and took the lives or that killed.
Tragically took the lives of.
So that took place on October 7th, 2023 and took the lives that.
Yep.
Okay.
Kelsey, you could add it where it says took place. Tragically took the lives of blank on October 7th, 2023.
Okay. Any more discussion?
No.
Final whereas we acknowledge the urgency of the situation and the imperative need for immediate action. Right. Moving on to resolutions. Now therefore be it resolved that, and there are 9 in total, though I have 2 more to propose. I'll get to those at the end. 1. The city of Salem, Oregon calls for an immediate and permanent ceasefire and end to the hostilities in the region which are causing a horrific loss of Palestinian life.
Any edits?
My edit would be to change horrific to catastrophic.
Especially if we're gonna use horrific.
Yep.
Proposal was to change horrific to catastrophic.
Thumbs up.
I support the change.
Amen.
Uh,
Thank you. 2, we demand that no more U.S. aid, monetary or otherwise, be directed to the arming or defense of Israel or the Israel Defense Forces. Laura, Lisa, Kate, Robert. 3, we urge for the immediate and unrestricted proliferation of humanitarian aid commensurate with the multiple levels of socioeconomic collapse in Gaza. Colleagues? 4, we urge leaders to prioritize the safety and well-being of all hostages and detainees, recognizing their right to freedom and immediate and unconditional release. 5, we extend our support to diplomatic efforts and initiatives aimed at facilitating a peaceful resolution to the conflict that establishes a free and liberated Palestinian state.
Good.
6, we express our unwavering commitment to fostering peace and unity within the city of Salem and representing the voices and concerns of all of its residents.
Mhm.
7, we stand in solidarity with our Palestinian, Muslim, and Jewish communities, affirming our commitment to their safety, security, and inclusion within the fabric of our city. 8, we condemn and will not tolerate anti-Semitism, anti-Palestinian or anti-Arab bigotry, Islamophobia, or any acts of bias or hate against Jewish, Muslim, or Palestinian residents of the city of Salem.
Good.
And the final one is written as 9. We express our sincere hope that the current conflict will be resolved swiftly and peacefully, leading to a just and lasting peace. All right.
Good.
At this time, are there any additional clauses folks would like to include here in the resolution section?
Nothing, anything from you guys online?
No.
No, Joaquin, did you say that you had a couple that you would like to add?
I do.
What do you have?
I have 2. The first is modeled after section 2 of the resolution page of Eugene's city council resolution from December, which is just to name explicitly Salem, calling on Salem's elected officials in the name of council and mayor, to in turn call on Salem's federal delegation. So that would be Congresswoman Salinas, Senators Wyden and Merkley, to leverage their positionality and authority to bring about the end of the genocide and facilitate peace.
120% agree.
20%.
I support that addition.
I'll send it to you.
And the last one has been born in part out of the process that we've undertaken the last few weeks. And it speaks to a need for coalition and solidarity building, which we've heard about a lot. And so it would, I haven't written it, but so there's some language that can be found in the cover letter that I drafted, which is mentioning our support for and desire to be a part of any coalition of community partnership, intergroup relations, or solidarity building that may come from this, because the work of building and maintaining and growing community is what we're about, and now more than ever is necessary, and we are invested in being a part of that.
I agree.
Yeah.
Anything
Is
else?
our role in that,
I'm sorry.
to create a coalition, Joaquin? Is that the proposal? What does that
The
look
language
like?
the language I used in the cover letter was support, just because of how preliminary we are in those conversations with city leaders and community leaders. But recognizing that those conversations are in a nascent stage and we'd like to see them mature, I think support is the best I can do right now. But if the desire is there for the HRC to be a convening force, then let's do that. But I don't know if we're in a position to say it yet. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. I have one note on, I don't know, sorry, I don't know if we're closed on 10 or
You're
10 and
good.
11. Okay. I have one note on 9. 9 seems almost like a wrap up, and so I would propose that we close the resolutions with 9. And along that line, I feel like it would be a good idea to like reiterate the ceasefire in that line item.
I like.
Yeah, I would.
Good.
I would agree with Kate. I would agree with Kate on that. And that number 9 as it stands should be the closing point, and the reiteration of the ceasefire in our talks about that we resolve the conflict swiftly and peacefully with a permanent ceasefire.
Permanent, unconditional.
Yes.
Okay.
Leading to a just and lasting peace.
So move move 9 down and then add permanent unconditional ceasefire.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what we're hearing. And if we're going to talk about placement, I'd like the call on our federal delegation to be between where 5 and 6 are now. And I don't have an opinion about where. I think the coalition building should come towards the end.
For sure.
Maybe even immediately preceding the final one.
I agree with what
Okay.
you said. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments?
I got nothing.
And then for the record, we need to read through.
Read through it.
All right.
So we had skipped over, we had put a pin in, whereas we are deeply sympathetic. I have a draft version that I would like to propose. We are immensely horrified that 2 million Palestinian civilians have been displaced and the lives of Israeli people have been impacted.
I'm comfortable with that.
I have one too. Can I put
perfect. Let's hear it.
Let's see, is our chat open? Is our chat's not open? Here, I'll read it.
No.
The displacement of 2 million Palestinian civilians and the impact on Israeli lives is utterly appalling and unacceptable. We demand immediate action to address this crisis.
I would have to say that Lisa was the better writer than I was.
The first part was okay, but the whereases, I don't think the demand fits.
The demand falls in the resolution.
Yeah.
Lisa, is that fair?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think, up to the we demand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All righty. Are we ready to go through these again as amended?
Yes.
All right. Whereas, and forgive me, please stop me if I get this wrong. I may have not written everything and I can't even read what I write half the time. Whereas the ongoing atrocities in Gaza have resulted in immense human suffering and loss of life. And whereas the city of Salem holds as a key value compassion and is committed to promoting peace, unity, and respect for all of its residents. And whereas we recognize and stand in solidarity for our Muslim and Jewish communities, we are affirming our commitment to their safety, security, and well-being. And whereas over $2 million of Salem taxpayer dollars have been used to fund Israel's war, including a time frame, source, and atrocities instead of war. Atrocities in Gaza. And whereas we share dire concerns with the, again, atrocities in Gaza in which over 35,000 Palestinians have been killed as of the date will change, with the exact amount unknown due to the inability to count the dead as the health system collapses, another 80,000 injured and several thousand more reported missing and presumed to be dead under the rubble. And whereas the Israeli government and Israel Defense Forces through violence and blocking humanitarian aid are widely acknowledged by the international community as being a violation of international law and enacting genocide against the Palestinian people. And whereas, Lisa, help me out here.
Okay, the displacement of 2 million Palestinian civilians and the impact on Israeli lives is utterly appalling and unacceptable.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yep.
Oh. And whereas the people of Gaza face further devastation from the lack of food, water, sanitation, and other basic necessities, with over 500,000 Gazans reported starving by the United Nations. And whereas we condemn Hamas's attack on Israeli citizens that tragically claimed the lives of over 1,200 that took place on October 7th in 2023. And whereas we acknowledge the urgency of the situation, the imperative need for immediate action. Now, therefore, be it resolved that 1, the city of Salem, Oregon calls for an immediate and permanent ceasefire, an end to the hostilities in the region, which are causing a catastrophic loss of Palestinian life. And 2, we demand that no more U.S. aid, monetary or otherwise, be directed to the arming or defense of Israel or the Israel Defense Force. And 3, we urge for the immediate and unrestricted proliferation of humanitarian aid commensurate with the multiple levels of socioeconomic collapse in Gaza. And 4, we urge leaders to prioritize the safety and well-being of all hostages and detainees, recognizing their right to freedom and immediate and unconditional release. And 5, we extend our support to diplomatic efforts and initiatives aimed at facilitating a peaceful resolution to the conflict that establishes a free and liberated Palestinian state. And this is a new one. 6, call on city leaders to in turn call on the federal delegation representing Salem in the name of Congresswoman Salinas, Senators Wyden and Merkley, to leverage their positionality and authority to facilitate and end the genocide and the beginning of peace. That would make 6. 7, we express our unwavering commitment to fostering peace and unity within the city of Salem and representing the voices and concerns of all of its residents. And 8, we stand in solidarity with our Palestinian, Muslim, and Jewish communities, affirming our commitment to their safety, security, and inclusion within the fabric of our city. And 9, we condemn and will not tolerate anti-Semitism, anti-Palestinian, or anti-Arab bigotry, Islamophobia, or any acts of bias or hate against Jewish, Muslim, or Palestinian residents of the city of Salem. And 10, the HRC commits to supporting and facilitating a coalition process with community leaders to bring about harmonious relations in the city, which brings us to 11. We express our sincere hope the current conflict be resolved swiftly and peacefully, leading to a just and lasting peace, and that an immediate and permanent ceasefire is the first step in bringing about that process. I made up the language there at the end, but any final comments or reactions?
I have 2 recommendations, but I don't want to make everybody go through that again.
Nope.
That would be okay.
I also,
You all
I
have.
would
Just
also
a moment,
have,
folks.
Okay. I'll do mine and Robert will do yours. Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
The first that just took me by surprise when you read it out loud again, Joaquin, was just calling people the dead is just really like, when you say it out loud, it's really heartless. And as we talk about people who are our family members, we say the deceased. It's just kinder, gentler, more personal.
Would you
So
help me
I don't know.
in guiding me to where you are in the language?
That is, and the whereas we shared dire concerns with the war in Gaza. It's under the 2 million.
Thank you.
Whereas,
And your
Yeah.
your recommendation is dead to deceased?
yeah, we say it twice. I would say it's just a gentler and more empathetic term. Which also you use for family, so it's just a little kinder. The second is to be more actionable, but we're requesting from our federal senators and representatives. I don't want to be the person bringing this up, but I would maybe ask them to also ask for a ceasefire, because I know they have, I don't believe they have, I don't think they necessarily will, but this is where local municipalities and cities can push on our representatives to do that. So if we're going to ask them to take action, then, and we are saying the word ceasefire, then that should be included, in my opinion.
I agree. I should have done my due diligence and read out the part of the city of Eugene. Can I do that now? And then we can react to what you see. We can marry the two, Kate.
Yeah.
So I was modeling after this, which is section 2 of the resolution from Eugene City Council. City Council asks all members of Oregon's federal delegation to use, they actually go beyond just Lane County. They go to everybody. Asked all members of Oregon's federal delegation to use the platform provided by their office to advocate for peaceful diplomatic measures that will result in an immediate and long-term reduction of violence and bloodshed. Sounds like you would also like to hear ceasefire be in that language.
Yeah, and I think from everyone we heard from, well, not everyone, I won't speak for everyone, but from the majority of constituents we heard from, they would agree with that.
Okay, I think I heard you right.
I'm comfortable with that language, but I think going back to the word deceased, I'm wondering if like we want to use, like, now is not the time to use gentle language. I feel like either dead or those killed might be better.
If that's the intention, Kelsey, that's okay. My perspective was out of respect for the families, but if the intention is like, you know, to make it more poignant and impactful as a statement for that impact, so that people understand like the impact of the statement itself, then I think we can leave it as is. But it's just when you read it and I'm thinking about my own family and how it would maybe want people to speak about them, I just would want to use gentler language, but I don't want to devalue the impact of the statement. So I'm okay with either. It just was something that stood out to me.
Yeah.
I said I go with the Willow Commission on that one. I like the language as it stands, but if people want to use a different term, then that's not like a sticking point.
When you say as it stands, do you mean dead or deceased?
Well, as it says, as it stands, dead. But if people feel moved to go with deceased, then I'm good with that as well.
Online, any comments?
I'd like to stay with the word dead because of the point. We're making a point.
Can't see. No, it's just.
I concede my point. That's okay.
But thank you for bringing it up, Kate.
Yeah.
And thank you, everybody, for that. Kate, are there any more items? I think Robert has been waiting as well.
Nope, sorry, Robert. Go.
No apologies.
Yes, so on, resolution number 2, where it states that we demand that no more US aid, monetary or otherwise, be directed to the arming or defense of Israel or the Israeli Defense Force. I think we should also include language that states that we demand that no more US aid. Here's kind of my proposal, is that we demand that no more US aid, monetary or otherwise, be directed to Israel or the Israeli Defense Force for the purpose of arming, defending, or executing military actions or acts of genocide. The reason I say that is because there's other ways that the US can or could support Israel that is not in terms of arming or defending, and i.e. providing intelligence for the execution of offensive military actions. And so I think it's important that we also call out that we demand that we're not aiding in the execution of military actions.
I agree with
Or
that.
acts of
because if
genocide.
we're-
Yeah,
I
that's
have
good.
a question.
Let's
I
take
agree.
Lisa finish, Lisa and then Hamadi.
No, that's good. I agree with Robert. I like that.
Are we
Agreed.
referring to like US boots on the ground? Because I mean, there is a stated that we are not going to put boots on the ground, but we are also in the middle of building a dock. Which is, I mean, like basically a harbor that's gonna be used to export oil and that sort of thing, and it's gonna be built by 1,000 troops. So in essence, that's boots on the ground. So are we saying like a hard, like we're not doing anything? Or just,
No, we're just not directing aid, monetary or otherwise, to Israel or the Israeli Defense Force for the purpose of arming, defending, or executing their military actions or acts of genocide.
What if we add the word offense?
The building of a dock isn't a military action. Like it's more of a humanitarian effort and a humanitarian mission. Yes, it would fall under the purview of the military, but
Go ahead, complete what you were saying, Robert.
yeah, I guess like I lost my train of thought, but by stating the resolution in here and everything, I mean we're not prohibiting the support of building a dock and humanitarian efforts into Gaza. We're denouncing our support and demanding that the US not provide any assistance to Israel and everything for their offensive military actions
Robert,
and the carrying out of genocide.
sorry, I thought you were done. What if we just added the word offense?
how about we include
It's in
Robert's office?
Okay, yeah, so the execution of offensive military actions or acts of genocide. I would,
Do we want to just say be directed to the arming, offense and or defense of Israel? Do you think that's specific enough? Oh, I think Robert.
or,
No, Robert was just thinking.
And then we'll go.
okay, so what if we worded it, we demand that no more US aid, monetary or otherwise, be directed to Israel or the Israeli Defense Force for the purpose of arming, defending, or executing offensive military actions.
I'm fine with that.
For the,
Like it.
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
We demand that no more US aid, monetary or otherwise, be directed to Israel or the Israeli Defense Force for the purpose of arming, defending, or executing offensive military actions.
Yes, I like that.
Online, anything?
Anything?
Good.
The reason I like it is because of allowing people to have these, we're saying we want a coalition where people can come and speak. Well, they also have to have the opportunity to speak together and have peace talks there. And so I think some of the money goes for things like that. So if it's going towards peace talks, yes, that's fine. So I don't want to, anyway, I'm not in charge of where tax dollars go, but I don't want to cut that off in our resolution. So I agree, Robert. Thank you for bringing that up.
Robert, this is Gretchen. Will you send me that sentence? Because my paper's getting messy and I want to be confident I have it.
Oh, absolutely. I'll send it
Thank
to you right now in an email.
And Robert, there was a second item of yours, or no?
No, that was it.
Any other edits or additions to that, the resolution?
I already put my 2 cents in.
Yeah, I've put all of them.
So seeing none, I'm wondering if, there could be a motion, or is there a motion to approve the resolution as it stands with the edits and all the stuffs?
I moved, so moved.
All right, it has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Oh, Joaquin beat me to it.
All right, Robert.
Seconded by Joaquin. I think let's do discussion comment. Yeah, is there any further, well, I guess we've been talking about it.
You have, it's just good to double check.
Yeah, any questions or further discussion on that motion? All right, seeing none, I think with something this purposeful, would people be comfortable if we did a roll call vote?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm just gonna call on people and you say yay or nay or abstain. We'll start with Laura.
Yay.
Right, Lisa,
Aye.
Kate,
Yay.
Robert,
Without hesitation, aye.
Kathy,
Yes.
Amani,
Yes.
Joaquin,
Aye.
and I am also an aye. All right, with the vote of 9 to 0.
8.
Oh, 8 to 0 to 0, that the resolution passes. So congrats. Oh, yes. Hold on. Y'all.
We're not done yet.
We're almost
Yeah, we're
done.
not done yet.
Hold on.
Um,
So we have a final item to consider, which is the letter.
Yes, well,
May I read it again?
please.
So, this, I drafted this letter, for consideration of the commission as a cover letter, which was Hamadi's idea to accompany the language to council. And it requires our consent, our vote. It will be dated for today, as opposed to yesterday when I wrote it. But
I have a question. Do you want me to wait until you get to that part?
you
or
can ask
it?
anything you like.
So it says, under the bullets, consistent with our mandate and parameters provided by council and mayor. And my question is, what parameters were we provided?
Just to provide language.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cause I didn't,
No,
I felt like there was some, I felt like there that led me to a question about, well, what did they provide? So I don't know if that language is a little bit misleading.
Okay.
That's all.
Cassie, quick question. Where are you speaking? What paragraph?
It's the third paragraph. It begins with consistent with our mandate and parameters provided by council and mayor.
Oh, I'm taking that to mean chapter 8 of
Yes,
Salem Revised Code.
in part, yes. Mandate, for sure.
Mandate. I made that
Parameters,
connection.
parameters is from just the request from Mayor Hoyt.
Oh, but I see the point because it's not like
Yeah.
there was a written thing with a bunch
Yeah.
of parameters.
That makes, yes, it
Right.
makes me feel like we were given a very specific, please do this, this and this,
Rather
and then we
than-
weren't, and so that's.
Propose some language.
Or you could
Well,
just
well,
X at the
consistent
beginning
with-
and say
How
the whole
about
part.
mandate and request?
Yeah.
And the request
And the
copy.
request.
Okay.
All right, okay, we're off for the races. Okay. With your permission? Yes, well. Honorable Mayor Hoy and City Council. Salem residents have approached mayor and council and called on their elected leaders to address a crisis that has been unfolding on the world stage for more than half a year. The siege in the Gaza Strip. In early April, the mayor approached the Human Rights Commission and requested input on crafting language sensitive to the diverse landscape of our local community, while also capturing the best of our city's values. The commission is a group of residents empowered by your appointment that leverage their experience and expertise to advise council on human rights issues and assist residents by hearing and resolving discrimination complaints and promoting harmony. Our mandate is found in Chapter 8 of Salem Revised Code and includes recommending to council action, policies, and legislation to be considered by state and local governments, promoting harmonious intergroup relations within the city, examining sources of tension, practices of discrimination, and acts of prejudice in the city. Consistent with our mandate and the request provided by council and mayor, the full commission has met 3 times over 3 weeks and held more than placeholder X hours of public discussion on the question. In the course of our public engagement, the commission performed outreach to faith communities, received more than placeholder X pages of public opinion. X members of public attended, and X provided spoken testimony. Salem residents provided diverse perspectives, most centered on a concern for decency. A resolution process on issues of foreign affairs may at first appear extraordinary. However, Salem taxpayers collectively subsidize the tune of $2 million the actions of a foreign government, and in the judgment of this Human Rights Commission, United Nations, a majority of the international community is committing egregious violations to the rules of war, including genocide against the Palestinian people. Salem would be joining more than 70 cities across the country, among them the city of Eugene, in calling for a ceasefire and expressing their urgent concern with humanitarian crisis arising from the collective punishment and destruction Israel is visiting upon civilians in the Gaza Strip. These issues profoundly and directly affect members of the Salem community. A necessary precondition to harmony, locally or otherwise, is the recognition of the situation's dire reality and the centering of human life and dignity. The language presented for your consideration represents a serious effort on the part of the commission to telegraph Salem's core value of compassion, promoting peace, standing against bigotry, and celebrating our cultural diversity. Moving forward, and partly born out of this process, the commission seeks to support a coalition of community partners and leverage existing city infrastructure that will continue to facilitate necessary and difficult conversations that mitigate social injury, promote harmonious relations, and stand for peace and justice for all of our communities. Signed respectfully and in partnership, the Human Rights Commission.
I have 2 grammar questions.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. So the commission is a group of residents empowered by your appointment who leverage their expertise. Sorry, first paragraph. So who instead of that?
So the way I read it, the group that leverages expertise.
Correct.
Not the.
Yeah.
Okay, not the.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the group that leverages, yeah.
And then my next question is, and maybe I'm just not familiar with how this word is used. Fourth paragraph. The collective punishment and destruction Israel is visiting upon the civilians. The word visiting.
Enacting. Visiting upon.
Okay,
That's, yeah.
I learned something. Thank you.
It's more of a literary thing. So I apologize.
No, I was confused. I learned
Elsie,
something.
Did we keep the word that or change it?
Keep the word that.
Thank you.
And then visiting works.
Copy.
Okay, that was all I had.
Anything else?
I like it. I do have a comment. I do like it. I feel we have had people come and talk to us who have asked us not to do this, not to recommend this, that they live in fear. And I feel an obligation to make sure that council and the mayor know that. You know, and I don't know that it says it's So I would suggest adding something like, we did hear from people who asked us not to do, who do not want you to do this, they feel it's divisive, and that they live in fear. Just so it's in there, and they have that information.
I think an appropriate place, Kathy, would be to add that to Salem residents provide diverse perspectives and naming. I can draft one, but
Yeah, because it ends with most centered on a concern for decency, but I think it leaves out.
sure.
And many expressed concerns around, anti-Semitism.
No, that's good.
I mean, I think we just say, we had several members of the community who asked us not to do this.
Yep.
And they live in fear. Or they commented to us that they live in fear. I feel like we need to let them know.
That's fair.
Online,
Agreed. I agree with
Yeah.
Kathy.
Agree.
Thank you for that.
so pending though, okay, any more comments on that?
Not on that, but I do have another
On
grammatical
anything.
question. Yes, in the first sentence,
Oh, boy.
second line, we use to address a crisis that had been unfolding, and I believe we should be using has been unfolding.
Yep, thank you.
Or is unfolding.
Continues to unfold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I like
Continues.
that. Yes, continues to
Yes.
unfold.
Uh-huh.
Look at us. Together we can put Grammarly out of business.
Never known
Love it.
a effective collaborative writing experience, but I think we're getting there.
Is that it, Robert, or do you have others?
Oh, that was my only one.
Lisa, did you have feedback? Okay.
No.
I had two. One, I thought like what we've heard from a lot of people in the third paragraph from the bottom. I don't know if bullets count as paragraph. So third paragraph from the bottom, the destruction Israel's visiting upon civilians, the Gaza Strip. I think the language should be the Israeli government or the government of Israel. Because I don't think that's inclusive of all the people. It's the government specifically. And I think a lot of people have kind of spoken to that.
Okay.
Good point.
So sorry, someone's calling me. Let me hang up on them.
We could, to make it less like a little bit more passive, it could be the government of Israel. And then specifically passive, so it doesn't sound, it's like.
Yeah.
It's not a combination of everyone.
Punchy.
That's the-
Yes, yeah. And then the other note that I had was about the coalition, which I know you just added, Joaquin, but if we're recommending that we're kind of supporting a coalition in the city of Salem, I think that's a big piece to somehow mention. And I was thinking at the end, as you talk about difficult conversations that mitigate social injury, promote harmonious relations, stand for peace and justice in our communities, and support building a coalition for these conversations or something like that.
I think it said earlier in that paragraph.
Oh, okay. I might have missed
Yeah,
it then.
it says moving forward and partly born out of this process, the commission seeks to
I see it.
support
Okay.
a coalition.
Okay, yeah, I just missed it. Thank you.
So actually, not to take apart my own letter, but the one thing we don't do is ask them to do anything.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I would like to add,
Yeah, the first sentence of the first page does say, the Human Rights Commission proposes the following language for the city of Salem to use in a resolution. So, but yeah.
sure,
you're
but since
right.
we're going to all the trouble of having a letter to accompany it, I think we should just say,
Call that.
you know, we urge you to adopt this language.
Yes.
Okay, all right, I'll add a little. That may also help Kate with just fluency, with it being kind of grandiose statement, you know, okay.
I think instead of using adopt this language, we should urge them to adopt the resolution as presented. Because if we say use this language, then we open it up for them to be able to just kind of pick and choose what they want and just recreate their own. But what we want them to do is adopt the one that we have crafted over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I agree with Robert.
Any other changes or edits?
I'm good.
In that case,
All right.
I move that we adopt this letter along with the changes that are going to be made.
All right. It has been moved to adopt the
This-
letter. Oh, Robert, you got that second.
Oh, I was gonna second. Yeah, I was gonna take this
Yeah.
one.
It's yours. It has been moved and seconded. Is there any question or discussion around that motion? Huh?
Late to ask the conference.
Yes. All right, there's no questions or discussion. We'll move into a vote, and we'll do a roll call vote again. We'll start backwards. Aye.
Are you calling on us, Kelsey?
Yes, Joaquin.
Aye.
Hamadi?
Aye.
Kathy? Robert?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
And Laura?
Aye.
All right, with a vote of 8 to 0 to 0, the letter passes. Hey.
I'm not wanting to say something.
No.
This has been really difficult. And I've gone back and forth over the last 3 weeks. I've gone back and forth today. I've gone back and forth during this meeting about whether or not this is the right thing to do. I voted for it. I'm personally in favor of it. I don't like that we have people who live in our community who have come and said that they feel unsafe, that they don't trust the process, that they don't trust us, that there's harm being done. So I think that, I mean, the vote's done, but I think that there are opportunities for us to maybe do some work around process and coalition building and repairing some of those relationships that over the last 3 weeks, I think have been damaged. I feel very bad that that's happened, but I think that's the nature of the whole situation. But I think process-wise, we weren't. This is all kind of new to us. We haven't had these issues come where we had to go through this much of a process. So I think that we have some work that we can do to do better next time.
Thank you for that, Kathy. And kind of building off of that, we've thanked you before, but seriously, thank you all for being a part of this process. We hope that this does not end your involvement with the Human Rights Commission, that you stay involved in our work that we do, that maybe you even apply to to fill a commissioner seat. But that being said, commissioners, is there any last member remarks or announcements?
Everybody. Thank you guys for this meeting. Thank you for letting me be a part of it and including me. I'd like to thank you all for what you have done, what you have said, how you feel. Realize that all of it has value. All of it has value. And I thank you guys for being involved in this. And I urge you all to stay involved. Do not let this be the only issue, the only hill you live and die on. Do not let that happen. Stay involved. We need you. We cannot do anything if we do not hear what's going on. So we urge you all to stay involved. That's the one thing that I hope you take away. Stay involved.
Okay, that being said, I hope everyone travels safe tonight and always. But I think with that, I think our meeting is adjourned.